So I'm going to say one thing to Maui, which is this. Actually, in no way is that double dipping. What you're trying to do is this. You disbelieved in karrigan and Falcons the whole fucking way, every second from that CAC final, including all the matches in the actual Swiss system. You probably disbelieved before they played fucking Spirit, homie. Right, Snake and Banter returns after the major. Our guest is a return guest. It's Ne0Kai or Ne0Kai or what? I don't know. That's how Richard Lewis says. I don't know why. Is there an official version of the spell? Is it Neo? Is it Neo? What is it?
It actually is Neo because my name is pronounced Neo. So Ne0Kai is technically right. But it's like a childhood nickname.
Okay, basically. Right. We're here with Neo Genosis Evangelion, whatever. Named after his parents' favorite anime because he was so based. They deconstructed his personality to create his. Okay, all right. Well, get in the mech Shinji, whatever. I'm so based, I even know the references, kids. Don't even like that. I'd be more of an Asuka fan, wouldn't I? There you go. There's all the references at the beginning, 6, 7, whatever. I've got all the generations covered there. Right, here's where we're going to start. We obviously start always on the show with the spiciest topic. So this topic, you know what, Neo? You can be involved in this one. But this is essentially one of those ones where normally I would just do this in a polite way on Twitter. But I'll just do this. This is a straight shot across the bow into that motherfucker Mauisnake's head. Because you know what? Mauisnake tried this little game on his stream, which, I ain't fucking with this, mate, which goes like this, right? I had 3 different takes about this major, but if you know me, I will never lie and pretend like disingenuously I did one way I sneaked it. I'll always say if it's true. So, if you remember on Hot Take Point Made, I'm going to guess that, I don't know, 4 episodes back. It was a while ago now. It was right after IM Rio, if you remember, where Spirit had that little glow up and they made the finals, and Doc just played badly. So even though they lost to Vitality, I always thought people were sleepwalking. It's like, yeah, but Doc kind of played a bit crap. That was the event where today was good, and then Doc was like ill or something, right? So I remember thinking, like, why is no one saying like Spirit should be a contender? So I had to take on Hot Take Point Made that said this Spirit team is going to win the major, right? If you notice, even though they were doing awesome in all stage 2 and stage 3, why did I never mention that during the major? The answer's obvious, because they didn't have their coach there. Like, I wouldn't have counted that, like, for my pick. In my opinion, that hot take got invalidated the second they didn't take their coach. It's not the real team, is it? Like, I wouldn't have claimed it, like, for them winning. And then, since they didn't have the coach, I picked against them the whole major once they got to the playoffs, basically, except for the G2. If they hadn't got a G2, if they'd had Na'Vi, I think Na'Vi might even have beat them. I don't know on that one, because to me, I actually did think it's going to be a big deal when you're in the playoffs and you have to go to, like, game 3 like they did, and then you have all this tense moment. So anyway, that's to say, I would never have double dipped on that take. So now we'll update it to the next set, which goes like this, Neo. So then, obviously, when I came to the playoffs, we did an episode of Hot Take Point Made, and my hot take was, and I never even pretended to say this, I didn't even say Falcons will win the major. That wasn't the hot take. I said Falcons can win the major, because obviously the reason it was a hot take was, 1, they're about to play Vitality, who everyone should lose to. So 1, just saying they can win that match, by the way, already is crazy. And then I updated it to they can win the major, because the whole point of Hot Take Point Made is you're supposed to cook the take as hot as it can possibly go, basically. Like, actually, one thing we've done a good job with in the past is, say someone just does, like, if Simple does well, he can make the quarters. Actually, people like Casado point out, like, is that big a hot take? They'll say, okay, fuck it then, the final then, the semis. You know, you have to make it, like, a bit spicier. But the point was, I didn't just go, I'm taking Falcons and Vitality. So then, when I did my pick'em, I obviously picked Vitality to win. In fact, if people don't know, I got every match right. I mean, to be fair, the favourite won every match, in my opinion, except for the Falcons Vitality ones. That's the only stream I got wrong. Now, what's weird is, the reason I'm going to bring this up, it's not really that much of a shot at Maui, but I do think, actually, that this brings up the bigger issue. So I'm going to say one thing to Maui, which is this. Actually, in no way is that double dipping. What you're trying to do is this. You disbelieved in karrigan and Falcons the whole fucking way, every second from that CAC final, including all the matches in the actual Swiss system. You probably disbelieved before they played fucking Spirit, homie. I don't even know what you thought about the final. I didn't see your pre-match. I assume before the Vitality one, I understand you would have picked against that one. That's fine. But you're now trying to conflate me and you, even though my take was, obviously, logically, you have to pick Vitality to win. But other than that, actually, once I'd seen them play that Na'Vi game, I basically did say Falcons could do all these things. Now, that is quite relevant in light of the fact I was one of the few people in the scene, which is the bigger point. The ugly is the karrigan discourse. Because here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to be serious when I say this. Right? Here's why it doesn't work to make strong conclusions on outliers. Because by definition, outliers are the ones who don't fit the pattern or the norm or the rule. Remember, there's even even that concept, Maui. Like, you know what you said? No, karrigan himself has never won a tournament below, I think, like 0.81 rating or something. By the way, as people saw, Fifth Lauren did win like Cologne at 0.71, just like karrigan did now. But to be fair, he also wasn't the IGL, if people don't know back then. That was actually when he was just the support player or whatever. So players have won with really low ratings, right? Here's the problem with making that whole thing is, I don't know if Maui intended it to be this way, because I've listened to some of his streams, and actually when he did his own pick'em, he did allow for the chance that like Falcons could win the match, etc. But the reason I'm using this as an example is, I'm not saying that people are like morons for saying it's impossible. Obviously, it never happened to karrigan before, and basically what happened is what needed to happen. You needed almost all the players to have a glow up. Like, did you see that B-Trams one, where he showed that even though karrigan's KPR is in late maps, like after they get to round 9, the stat from B-Trams was, once you get to round 9 of a game, karrigan's actual KPR is like 0.2 less than Kicksan or something, which sounds massive until you realise, like, collectively, all the other players, every single one gained so much KPR. I think the only one who gained a tiny bit was Modesty, because he was already cracked out his mind. Every other one went up like mad amounts, like 0.2, 0.1. Then in the end, actually, collectively, it did add up to more, and hence, as a result, in the game, when you added some awesome calling, a miracle happened. That was unbelievable. I mean, basically, except for the Fury game, I actually think you could make a case, like, he did this like 3 times in a row, from the Na'Vi one to the Vitality one to the Spirit. Every one of those opponents should probably think they should have won that game, by the way. I even think the Mad Slept one is the Vitality one. Bro, they had to do like nonsense with pistols to win that game. That was like an impossible game. Like, if I'm Vitality, I'd be so pissed I lost that. But here's my problem that I'm getting to. I don't mind people doing that. Like, hey, let's keep an update on karrigan's kills. He's only got 2 kills. Remember, he had a bunch of halves where he had 0 T kills early in the tournament. Or if people are saying, hey, if he doesn't reach this number, he can't win. But my problem is this. It was presented as, like, it is impossible for him to win. Therefore, this Falcons roster is bad. Therefore, they shouldn't have signed him. Therefore, they'll fail. And then Zonic's an idiot. I feel like it built into a lot of Falcon hater topics. And my issue is this. By the end of the tournament, didn't that feel like the least consequential part of the run is what karrigan's fragging was? Like, didn't we all just sit back and watch, like, I hope I'm not glazing it, an unreal masterclass of, like, T-side calling? And again, maybe it is possible these players glowed up on their own, but it's kind of nutty, isn't it? I remember kyousuke not only couldn't play Inferno, he couldn't do anything in playoffs before karrigan came. If people don't know, he actually had the best stats of the entire playoffs. He was a 1.3 rating in the playoffs. Even the Ne0Kai one, bro, Ne0Kai was choking his tits off at every tournament by the end. He actually unironically carried the final. Like, I remember even saying, Ne0Kai was so nuts. He's actually even ruined what I thought was a very fair topic, which was, even if he wins the major, yeah, but if he doesn't win it, like, as the star player, does that really count? You know what I mean? Like, if someone joins, like, a fucking team as the bench player for Premier League and they win, that's not, like, if Steven Gerrard his last season had joined some team as the worst player, that wouldn't be the same if you're having a GOAT discussion of, like, well, he won the Premier League. You go, well, he didn't, did he? Ne0Kai actually kind of did carry the final. Like, actually, that kind of justified. So basically, the ugly, I only did a bit there, so Maui can do something with it if he wants to explain himself. It's more along the lines of, like, I actually think it's valid in general to point out people are low frag, as I did with Huxley, or they're going to have to get a lot out of their teeth. That's all legit. But I feel like actually some people waited until almost the bitter end of the movie, till the credits were almost rolling, to realise, I missed the entire point of the movie. I was watching one person's performance without noticing that essentially they were like a mini director of the movie and all the other performances I enjoyed. So I want to know where people go on this one. What do you think of this topic, Ne0Kai? By the way, again, I'm not pretending I said they'd win the whole time. I definitely didn't. It wasn't until they beat Vitality I was like all in, etc. So where's Ne0Kai on this topic?
I mean, I kind of love this discussion, especially, so I kind of was watching the major in person next to Yumi, who's been a pretty avid sort of like karrigan hater of this whole move and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was quite funny as a neutral to like basically just like piss him off the whole time. Like, yeah, but they're winning though. And that's kind of what I stand with it. It was like the whole way through, it just kind of kept feeling like with this whole karrigan discourse, it was blocking the everyone's mentality. I mean, there was a guy I was speaking to, like it's a random I'd met, and we were talking about it, and he was like, oh yeah, but karrigan shit. So like, yes, they've beaten Vitality, but they'll lose to Spirit, or they'll lose all the way through. And I was like, yeah, but like, look at kyousuke as a whole, right? You're looking so good all the way throughout, but he didn't realize that he'd been playing so well. I was like, yeah, this is like an insane run from him. He's like, oh, he's just playing average, isn't he? I was like, no, like he is doing way better than what we kind of used to seeing out of him. Ne0Kai's playing fantastic. So I think it shrouded a lot of people's views on this team as a whole. And then now it's become a big thing in hindsight of like, oh, okay, well, actually, these were really good calls. It doesn't matter. And that's sort of what I always felt with this whole like narrative. It's funny. Don't get me wrong. I like the kind of the shit on Twitter,
sure.
But where I've
also, by the way, we did have people on this show. I think both Vu and Austin. Austin did it as a real take. He just thought that he was too bad now. I think Vu's was he should retire so he doesn't like ruin his legacy or something like that. So we've even had people on this show have been bold enough to do it. Yeah, of course.
And I think for me, it's like become like even better and even sweeter now in hindsight, seeing kind of the change in a lot of people's mentality of like, well, actually now this is kind of interesting for Falcons because like, who gives a shit if he's bad? Like if he's bad, but they're still going to end up having the other four of them stepping up in such a big way that they all leveled up. And when you hear them in interviews and just even having like kind of brief conversations with the guys on Falcons, they're all kind of saying the same thing of like, I feel a lot more confident in what we're doing and I'm liking how karrigan's leading this team, and it feels like we got a bit more of a directive, and therefore as a team you can see it translating into these performances. I mean, the back-to-back, the run that they had obviously is insanely hard. I mean, bar the final, where they kind of just stomped over Furia. But like as a whole, like it was such an impressive run that my kind of like hindsight view of it, and I think a view that a lot of people are now starting to adopt, is kind of the sense of like, maybe it doesn't really matter if he's playing this bad if you are getting the other four step up in the way. And now obviously I think the narrative then changes if we get to a point of where it's like, actually if one or two of them start having
by the way, that's totally fair as well. Like they did barely get through some of these games. Like it was hard for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I think the credit on karrigan is the fact that in some of these hard games, I mean, especially the Vitality, right, 13-11s kind of back to back, where it's like you really have to go into kind of the depth of your bag of the calling and whatnot. And it's quite impressive to see how he dug them out of some bad situations, especially some of these sort of like forced by ecos that they're getting seemingly out of nowhere. That's for me where I felt like you kind of see the value in him. Yes, he's not going to bring the numbers. I mean, you saw against that Vitality, it was like a 0.6 rating, something like really poor across the series. But like, I mean, who cares if you're getting kyousuke kind of like lifting her up in that way and looking so strong? So the way I kind of feel about it, like, if anything, I understand the whole, like, it might taint his legacy, but if anything, now that he's now won it with such a short notice, because their whole plan of this with karrigan coming in was Singapore, right? It was never really about this major. Yeah. So now it makes it even spicier for me going into the second half of the season, where it's like, you can keep focusing on karrigan, but if they keep winning, then it becomes like, I mean, so many people are going to have to just jump ship at some point.
Okay, I'll address the double dipping comments first, because I feel like what I've noted after that. So if people don't know, basically, I on my own stream was quite vocal about the fact that, I mean, Thorin's like Falcons.
Bro, if someone watched you watching the final, they'd have thought you were Fallen's brother, mate. It was crazy work. Like I saw that. I actually went on your stream intentionally just for that moment when karrigan did those bullshit USP kills on Inferno. You died inside, homie. You were hoping on him. You were praying on his downfall, mate.
Yeah. But you were on a tour de glaze.
Oh, I was going crazy on
karrigan and Falcons that whole time. And
if people didn't see it, I unironically probably did like 100 tweets in 2 days or something.
Yes,
I did a lot.
So that's I think I did the thing. Now I'll admit, because we're on Snake and Banter, it's a show where we drop the masks a little bit more, where we have more serious discussions as opposed to just, sending off like fiery messages all the time. I'll say this: I think that my recollection of what happened on Hot Take Point Made was similar to how fans perceive my takes in the past, and I attributed that to you in a way, because I kind of got a caricature of your tweet of your hot take, and that's kind of what, and I think it also was kind of spurred by the fact that in chat everybody's just saying like Thorin was right, Thorin was, everybody's just like kind of goading up the take that you had, when in reality the quote of your take was more just like, they can win. And I'm kind of surprised.
I definitely didn't call it. I would never even pretend to have done that, bro.
Yeah,
I definitely did.
Yeah, you didn't actually say on that show that they were going to win the
I still
major
think Vitality should have won the match. I sort of just implied it. I actually feel mad sorry for them, bro. I thought they didn't even play that. Look, Zero played like shit, but they should have won that game.
I mean, I look back at it also because I was thinking, how many times so first, I'll first address the first thing. So yeah, obviously you said that. I played it up a lot on the kind of like, it was first of all like Fallen v karrigan and all the narratives baked in, but then it was also,
and you were riding hard with Fallen, like I say. You were hoping he would win so you could move him up your rankings, right? True?
Yeah.
True.
Oh, I won't lie. I was rooting against Falcons the whole way.
And your boy Yukindar was on Furia too, to be fair. If people don't know, that's one of Maui's original players.
I like them. I like a lot of aspects of them. I think that it's great for for a lot of the stories of the players on Falcons that they were able to succeed in the way they did. I'll even just say that, I mean, I wanted Fallen to win it actually, because I think that the GOAT, he kind of has been out of the running of the GOAT IGL conversation, but I think it's really muddied water at that point. I think it just becomes a very difficult conversation if he won that major. If he won that major, I think the perception of him would have changed so immensely because it would have also led to him being the only in-game leader in history who would have had two majors with a domestic lineup, native speaking language, and an international one.
Okay.
No one's done that.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
people
True.
Yeah, other than Apex technically, but not in like a some of the smallest guys do, but not
that's
as
a very
IGN.
fair point. I don't think I've ever actually heard anyone say that because actually we've never had them close to winning the major yet. True, that is an international lineup technically. In my brain, I think of it as a Brazilian lineup with the other, but it's international. You're right. Yeah, true.
Yeah. So that would have been a super interesting conversation, and I thought it would have. And also, I think that I'll be real. I mean, I've talked about it before in terms of my criteria for in-game leaders. If I'm splitting hairs between them, if there's not a noticeable difference in calling level, I do think individual level is actually quite valuable.
Yeah, of course.
It is why I.
No, by the way, that's why I say to me, karrigan's the outlier. Like, because surely he has the most insane calling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why I probably have fallen higher in my rankings than a lot of people. And also, I think it's one thing that
do you have him above karrigan?
Probably. No, not anymore. Not anymore. I don't think I can. Yeah, Fair enough. Anymore. But I think that it cements. For me, it is what keeps Glaive on top. Actually, the fact that he was always a threat as an individual, on top of the fact that the mid rounding was absurdly good all the time too. Like he had god tier late round call or late half calls. And he had incredible individual micro play.
By the way, I even could have made that my ugly point too, because I said this on Twitter. The thing I hate the most actually about this karrigan discourse is because Apex just won everything recently. Now Glaive's not even in the GOAT debate anymore. Now it's karrigan versus Apex. At least even if you take him out, you have to put him in at the beginning of the sentence. He won 4 fucking majors. He was pretty cracked.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
are we doing? This is crazy. I know.
Yeah, the peak of I'll still hold it over. I think what makes this Falcons run insanely impressive is that it actually, to me, this is kind of maybe we should just get into it when we get into good stuff about Falcons. But I guess to go on your ugly point even further.
No, it's more about the discourse. What do you think about the general fan discourse about the whole thing, or the fact that look, by the way, it is totally legit. I do it myself with Zimu. Didn't you see in the final where I would be in that match where I would be wait a minute, but Zimu has just many kills and karrigan has more. I do it too, but I feel like people were almost preying on his downfall. They thought, I think some 100%. Fans just thought it was a bad move, mate. I think, in fact, remember when it was described as a Hail Mary, people actually wanted Kicksand to stay. I think people are the reason I made this ugly is I feel like people are just going to delete that because it's awkward now that they've said it and he's won the motherfucking major, hasn't he, with 60 days in the team or whatever. So what do you think about the discourse element? What did you see? What do you think on it?
Well, my initial take of it was that it resuscitates Falcons. That was my literal immediate tweet when they actually got him. But then he started, I swapped up pretty quickly because I thought, okay, this is going to breathe life into their T-sides. As a captain, he's way better. Just the way that Kicksand led, I think actually Kicksand is a relatively good tactician, but he's not a leader of men. karrigan, ever talking to players on FaZe in the past, or I caught Frozen when he actually first jumped ship from Maus to FaZe. I talked to him about a little bit why, what is Shuhei versus karrigan, and I'm not gonna say exactly what the whole his quote or anything like that, but it was just his faith in karrigan was almost religious, that's what it's like for people around karrigan, where he just embodies so many of the characteristics that you would want in somebody to be your in-game leader. Where, I think Kicksand could actually call. I think Kicksand could have probably called 80% of the T-side rounds of karrigan, and he maybe even has. But karrigan just clearly as a centerpiece for a team just keeps everybody in a good mood. I've never seen kyousuke smile this much for 2 months straight. He's acting like every game is a pug, and every game he's just having so much fun. So those are aspects that I think actually are so intangible regarding karrigan and why he's been successful. So I think that I swapped up because when I looked at the numbers and I, as someone that values some out level of individual output, and even I'll even say when I talked to Apex in an interview before the major, he didn't think that karrigan's level was acceptable.
If everyone goes to YouTube, type in Mauisnake Apex, he's got an interview you can go watch. It's an hour.
Yes. Yeah, so when I went over that with him, he didn't think that karrigan could play like that. Okay. So it's not like this is just some pundit or fan narrative. This is just like this level of fragging has not been seen in like a major
absolutely.
champion legitimately since 5th Lauren.
By the way, he was actually terrible. Like, put it this way, I referenced it earlier, right? Boys, we all went out of our minds when he did those like 3 USP kills. Like, that's just a normal set of kills for any other player. But you were like, oh my god, he can actually shoot people. Like that. Like, when that happens, I'll give you the extreme example, Maui. This is what we all did on that famous IEM Sydney where Simple didn't go and Blade had to AWP. If he got one AWP, everyone was going, oh my god, like that's because you don't expect him to get any kills. Like I am with you. It was the most extreme level of shit fragging ever, by the way. In fact, I'll even say this, Maui. You notice I did also add into my take, not like this is fine fragging. I would be like, but if he ever gets back to his old, I did put that in too. Like even I thought you'd have to frag a bit better than this. Like I think in the final someone even had a stat where he went like 6 kills on T side or something absurd. Like, some like again impossibly low number.
Yeah, and I think that I mean, he had one good map basically. It was the Inferno map was one decent map, and I think a lot of it. If rating 3.0 showed a breakdown, I'm pretty sure that USP round was probably
most
like 30% of his rating from that map came from that single like just USP spam. So I did.
And it was just spam. It wasn't even aimed, bro. He just spammed the fucking gun.
And they were all like lit.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
One of them was hit by team damage. Two of them were spammed through the CT smoke by the guy in kyousuke, I think, rotating. Yeah, no, there were so many little moments where karrigan turned me into a believer again. Like I was holding it off. I was fighting it as hard as I could, obviously, but. I mean, what can you do but take your hat?
You know this, Maui. One of the problems I have is I actually think a lot of people that think he shouldn't play anymore, shouldn't play in Falcons, aren't even karrigan haters, but they all do this take. I'll just throw this to you guys after this, see what you think of this. But it's one that I don't ever get, which is, like, pretty well, I'll tell you, I know he's not in CS much now, but I can say, like, Lurpus thinks this. They think that thing of, like, why doesn't he just become the coach? But then my problem is this. It's like, yeah, but you can't call every round then. Like, you lose the calling still. Like, I'm with you. Like, look, I think I also made this point to Maui on shows. Listen, if this was any other team, like to me, the only teams karrigan could go to had to be the most stacked skill teams in the world. Like I told people it'd have to be like Falcons. I've actually in the past even said Fury, maybe even Mouse or something. You'd have to have some team where every other player could frag out basically. Like I do think he can't play. Put it this way, it's obviously he can't play for FaZe Clan anymore. He definitely couldn't play for like some like fucking Liquid or G2 or something. There wouldn't be a point adding him to the team. But to me, if he becomes the coach, surely we do lose some of that shit. Like he could only talk like 3 times a half or something. Is that not too much?
I also think as well, like you could even see the changing of people's narratives, like in the arena. Like day one, Falcons come out, they get like kind of relentlessly booed, right? And I think because they are this like common enemy. I think a lot of people, especially like the public discourse, was like blinded by like I hate Falcons, therefore.
Yeah, by the way, I should have mentioned that. To be fair, that is also probably part of it. Like, there's a lot of people just generally, and by the way, even for legit reasons outside of the game, but just prey on Falcons' downfall or want them to waste the money. I think that I should have said that. I think people added the karrigan narrative to that, and it blinded them.
And I think it became like this, it like compounded massively. And you could actually see the change in the arena. Like day one, booed relentlessly when they would win. People wouldn't celebrate as much. And they kind of get cheered against, right? And then as they kept winning, especially when they beat Vitality, the whole narrative shifted. Everyone was like, oh, fuck this. We love karrigan. We love this team. This team's cool. We like the players. They're playing well. And then they became like one of the most cheered for teams, like, especially going into that final. Louder cheers, most definitely for Falcons than Fury. And mostly Fury had their section. But like as a kind of consensus in the arena, they were the ones getting cheered for. And I think that was like where for me the discourse felt like it was like blind hatred over actually like the individuals and the play. And I feel like, it was kind of a conversation I had to somebody I was sitting with. Like if you had put this 5 under a different banner, like people would not have this sort of like, hard focusing on these specific things. It's just because they're under this Falcons banner, where I think a lot of like, I want to say the more casual fans, but I guess maybe even some of the more like dedicated watchers of Counter-Strike, of where they lean into it. And they just hate Falcons for the sake of hating Falcons. Therefore, the players are also, painted with the same brush. And I think that was where, and you can really even see the conflict as well, especially in a lot of conversations that people were having around the arena, or like even like the way they were reacting to stuff, where it was like, I love karrigan, but I hate Falcons. And they're like sort of like internally battling this. And towards the tail end, especially those last 2 days, it was all about actually, no, we just love karrigan enough. That's fine. Like, and
so you love Conquers all.
the wee woo thing. I think that became like a bit of a synonymous, like the crowd, the sheep of the crowd were like wee woo became like, okay, cool, we're behind this now. But I think that's where for me you can really see like the narrative change. Like going into the first few days, going up for a few beers before like the event even started, it was like, oh no, we want Falcons to get first round of that kind of thing. And by the end, it was like those same people I saw in Falcons jerseys, like some of my friends.
Oh, that's hilarious! They actually did the meme, that Homer Simpson meme where he goes back in the bush.
Crazy.
That's amazing.
So there's one guy that.
By the way, you should have done that, Mo. You should have just turned up. You should have had it ready. So then the second the final ended, you just turned into like full Falcons outfit.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh no, it was on offer."
I love it.
It was on offer. It's like, "Oh, really, mate? It really wasn't on offer in the shop." That's what he's telling me. So yeah, you saw this narrative change quite a lot. But I think just because of the Falcons banner, I think a lot of like that's where you hard focus on like all of the negatives and no one focuses on the positives. And when you then bring up actually like kyousuke's playing way better than normal, Nico's actually looking like a star, Monacy's just still immortal as he always is, right? Like this is where they weren't even focusing on those things. They didn't really care as much. It was just like, oh, but karrigan's being shit, so therefore Falcons are shit. And it's like you're not actually watching the team, you just want them to lose for the sake of losing.
Okay, there we go. I think we covered that. It's pretty extensive. But I thought we'd just get it out the way at the beginning. Let's get some house cleaning done. Bit like karrigan just cleaned house, won the motherfucking TS2, mate, whatever. I didn't say do it. I just enjoyed it, that's all. And I definitely was never a hater. And as I pointed out earlier, listen, my boy Richard Lewis did it too. That legacy BO5 killed you all, didn't it? Even though I will point out, they almost were 2-0 up in that one. They won the first map, and then it was just Nico went to absolute shit on the ancient. Like, I actually think that's not even that bad. And in the early in the tournament, they beat Legacy anyway. So I think that was nonsense. But also, by the way, that is the other thing that broke you all. If any of you were holding out, well, by the end of the tournament, remember, the logic went, he can't win tournaments, right? Not only has he just won the biggest one in ages, boys, he beat the entire top 6 of the HLTV to do it. Like, that's kind of gangster, isn't it? Like, 5 of them at the tournament. Like, that's also the coolest thing about the plot. Now, I will also say that too. Like, that is an extremely unlikely outcome. Like, to beat all the best teams in the world and then win all these games. Like, obviously he's not supposed to, but that's why I said that. I think I phrased it quite fairly. I didn't go too hard on Twitter. I just said he is one of one Maui. There's only one karrigan. That's the thing. There's only one. So all the rules, they don't apply to him. And also, I've doubled down on the simple ones. I had to get one eventually. I pick them all to fucking win the major or make semis or whatever. So whatever, this one's correct. I have to enjoy it while it's right. Because if Simple ever does get into the team, I'll definitely do it again. Don't worry about that. I'll say he's going to be like 7
I'll come back round.
Yeah, of course. I'll be back soon. If anything, the best thing about Hot Take Point made is if you ever get a hot take right, it just empowers you to make way shitter hot takes that are like even more ridiculous. Because it's like gambling. You're like, yeah, I can't lose. This is hilarious.
Lean into it.
Yeah. Right, okay, Neo, what is your ugly take?
Yeah, so my argument is straight off the back of the major with like actually how we had, for me, quite a lot of contenders coming into it, especially when we then, as the results panned out every day, it was like actually this team could win it, and we had sort of like 4 or 5 different teams. So you can make very, very solid arguments that this team could continue go all the way, and I'm loving sort of how competitive it now feels. Like if this is like the natural level of where it's at, where it's like super competitive between like the vast majority, like the top 6, right? For me, I'm loving what I'm seeing. Like, it's not like we don't have like the one team like Vitality. You go into every tournament and are expected to win. I think the conversation is going to change quite a bit, like into the second part of the year, where yes, Vitality are still, I think, at least in my opinion, like the favorites going to tournaments. But it's this thing of like, if Falcons play at this or if Spirit play as well as they can, and that was without a coach, what are they going to look like? Furia, they can make finals. All of these conversations, you still never know what you're going to see out of a team like an RV, right? I'm loving how competitive it is. The ugly point for me is I'm worried, and I think it's probably going to happen, is that a lot of teams are going to, in the desperation to like claim this title, going to be making a lot of changes. And that for me is actually going to flip it back the other way, where it's then going to become super top heavy again. Like, I'm loving how competitive this tournament felt, and I'm hoping that it was going to like.
Do you have any teams in mind you're thinking of?
Yeah, I mean, Furia feels like one. I mean, there's like so many rumors flying around for them where it's like, you also got Aurora as well, who granted aren't as competitive as the rest, but obviously there's all the rumor mill about Ash coming into coach.
By the way, if people haven't seen it, I will just make a speculation here. I have zero behind the scenes info. I actually don't think Woxic is the sort of person that from losing a game would cry. I'm sorry, I actually did take that as like, this was the last run of this roster. So I don't know about you guys. I'm sure pure speculation. I don't pretend to have any inside info, but I took like his response, because people don't know, he just broke down crying after losing the game. I actually did sort of take that as some like, I don't know if it was him, if it was Major, whoever, it felt to me like that was some like, oh fuck, that was our last chance vibe. I don't know if anyone else got that.
Well, I mean, even like at the HLTV Confirm they did before Cologne, they kind of spoke to Woxic about the rumor mill and whatnot, because they're talking about Ash coming in as a coach, and they sort of like questioned it to him, and they were saying like, what do you think? And he was like, I'm not part of these rooms.
Yeah, didn't he say something like, it wasn't something like, it wasn't supposed to be like, I might be the person and get replaced or so. It was almost like that angle, wasn't it?
It sounded like he alluded to, yeah.
Like how would I know? I'm not the one who's going to be here or something. Yeah, true.
Yeah, so
like that.
It's like, I do think it's the same as like this sort of like last dance sort of thing in a way. And obviously we kind of got the actual official sort of last dance of like Fallen and Fury and whatnot. But I think you got so many of these teams who actually feel kind of competitive or feel like they can make runs out of nowhere. And then I feel like the issue is a lot of them going to make changes. The only ones that I feel like are probably untouchable right now is like Spirit Falcons and Vitality. But then outside of that, like there's already been conversations talking about like what would Na'Vi do to make changes. And then there's been like obviously Aurora with very public rumor mill. G2, there's it's constant like Manus and Pius talks about with that team. And you know, would there be any other changes? Would they bring in somebody like a Klim back and whatnot? And then you got the rest of the teams like Maus, same thing for them. Mongols, I mean, God knows what's going on with that team. And then you got the other kind of like fringe top 10 teams like your Bet Booms, who are like basically playing with essentially 2 stand-ins at this tournament, but they did keep them. They got 2 guys on the bench. 9Z, they're going through like, you know, there's conversations about them of do they actually go for like more imported talent or what changes do they make? And that's the ugly point for me, is I feel like we've kind of hit like a kind of a cool sweet spot. Like this major was so sick for me because it was like you can make very valid arguments for like 5 different teams winning it from that playoff bracket. And I'm worried that it's going to go right back to actually being like 1, maybe 2 at every single tournament. And it once again becomes like, especially for me, a lot of my like friends who I watch Counter-Strike are casuals, don't work in this scene, never played in any sort of professional manner, but you know, the casual viewers, and for them, they got like viewer fatigue of a lot of tournaments.
Oh, they need it to be more like novelty. You don't want it to be the same team win all the time. Right, okay.
Exactly. They were like, you know, I was like saying to them like, oh, are you going to watch like this tournament? And they were like, nah, I'll probably skip it because like Vitality are going to win it anyway, right? And it's like, oh man, like you're going to miss out on some other storylines, but like, I don't care. Like, you know, if it's going to be the same person lifting the trophy every time, I don't really mind as much. And
obviously the diehards, like, I'll skip this year. Let me know when he falls off.
Exactly. So that's where like, you know, from like a lot of casual fans that like, you know, I've interacted with and whatnot, they were kind of like bored of the Vitality like top 1, and maybe it's like Vitality and Falcons, which could be a cool little like battle for first place. But I loved how competitive it was looking, and I was hoping that this would be like the future a little bit, at least like the next season, where it's like we could go to like, and if it did say the same, like we could go to like, you know, into the next 6 months and have like every single tournament, 4 or 5 teams have like real valid claims to this title now, especially if Vitality aren't completely dominant and show that they are, you know, beatable in a way. But with all the rumor mill flying around about like what this summer's roster mania is going to look like, it seems like it's going to get quite ugly, where a lot of teams are going to go for changes, and changes mean teething issues for the first like 3 months. So it's just going to be like kind of shit for the start, which is what I'm worried about.
I'll say this is a good ugly point because it doesn't really, thankfully, pertain to me as much because I'm just going to watch anything regardless. I would say that, though, if I kind of consider the true contenders in my eyes, I do think that it may feel a little bit worrying that you'll have 2 teams that are at the top in Vitality and Falcons and everybody else trying to play catch up. I would still throw Spirit's hat in the ring. I think that they absolutely could beat Vitality or Falcons on any given day. I mean, they were a round away from beating Falcons themselves practically. So I definitely think that they have it within them. I also think that I'm actually I'm totally down for Na'Vi to make a change. I mean, I think that the 3 contenders are Vitality, Spirit, Falcons.
Agreed.
Na'Vi's close. They're kind of like, I wouldn't put them in the next tier entirely. They're like a quarter tier above in sort of their own like kind of A- area. But if they actually if they do pull the trigger, if they do actually make a move and they get frozen for EMA, that they're in contention for me. That's all they really need. I think I just need one more guy that's a little bit more consistent, that will actually be able to turn around on its head, even if the system kind of falls apart. And you suddenly have a team that to me is totally vying for trophies. So I'm okay with a 4-way race if that actually happens. And I'm also not even too mad if it's a 3-way race. I think that it does, this kind of major playoff did feel a little poor in terms of the seeding. And that's not really the conversation for now, but because it was so stacked on one side, because really it just felt like whoever's coming out of that bottom side of the bracket is just going to get absolutely destroyed by whoever came out of the top side of the bracket. And that's kind of what happened. Like if you put Vitality, Spirit, or Falcons in a BO5 versus, I guess it has to be Furia, but even if it was Aurora, for example, if they found their win, it was always going to be totally lopsided. So I don't really mind that if the other teams in the offseason play a little bit of catch up if they all decide we need to G2 if we want to swap out anybody on our team, whether that's Sun Pius, whether that's Nerds because he was playing horrifically through the playoffs and through the major in general. Whether it's Furia wanting to make some kind of change, or maybe it's by force that they have to make a change because somebody gets poached. Yeah, I think that I guess I don't really quite mind as much. I think that for like casual fans that I know, for like my friends and stuff that also keep their eye on it. I'd say my friends are actually they're not hardcore. They're not watching every tournament, but they do keep their eye on the big results, and they definitely tune in for a lot of different playoff games they'll watch. And they had a lot of fun watching this kind of stuff because of I think with the vintage factor of karrigan and Ne0Kai teaming back up.
Oh,
it
sure.
kind of
that's an old storyline, isn't it? It's an old soap opera storyline. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, one of my friends that I've been playing CS with for 20 years, he loved it. You know,
yeah.
he loved that.
By the way, don't you notice, you guys, if you're talking to casuals, that you are right on one level. Like, put it this way, casuals actually want it to be like they want to come along for real and go, does Forest still play or something? And then if you say yes, they get into it, don't they? Like, if you could have told them, hey, Falcons versus karrigan in the final, and he's with Ne0Kai, that actually might get them to watch the match. Yeah, for real.
I mean, the amount of people that wanted some kind of take on Crims playing for eyeballers was like astounding. I was like, I don't know what.
Yeah. To me, that's like a nothing burger. I know exactly. Okay.
You know, my barber, I got like a new barber, and I told him about like what I do for work and stuff, and he was like, "Oh, is Crims still kicking about?" And I was like, "Do you like know?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I used to like watch CS:GO back in the day," and like he's like, "This is like a kind of like where their casuals leaning in." But I said like, "Oh yeah, like Fallen's still doing it by the way," and he was like, "Oh shit, like that's fucking sick." Like I remember like watching him as a kid.
Okay.
We just need Stewie back for North America. That's the only thing.
Well, I will add to my point as well. The one other thing that I was like thinking about with this point is I think teams that I like, this is kind of maybe like just a pure bias point for me, but teams that I thought of are cool at some point this year that I've been like kind of rooting for as like plucky underdogs. Like you obviously had like Paravision at the start of the year. Like I like casted Paravision's first ever game as a team. So like I'd always been like pretty like ride or die with this team. Their first ever tournament was like a unranked CCT, and I casted like their first game all the way to the final and whatnot. And teams like Foot, for example, you know, like these teams, guys, I've casted basically their entire careers and whatnot. Like teams that I've always sort of got behind, they're all like collapsing around me. So it's like the annoying thing is like plucky underdogs that I'd like quite a lot. It feels like they're just like going up in flames. You got like Lonks is open for offers. That Foot core seems like it could be in jeopardy. Yep. Paravision's obviously like dead. Like who knows what's going on with that team, but they're like all over the place. FaZe are always kind of fun as well. Even for like the more casual viewer, God knows what's going on with that team too. So it's like one of those where like the teams that I've always sort of like been like, oh, I'd love to see them make a run. Like if they can make playoffs, it'd be cool kind of thing. Was like the idea for me. Monty's another good one as well, right? You got like the rumors of Gizmy to 100 Thieves and the core being picked up by like Luminosity, but it's like not the good part of the core. It's like it's a bit of a weird one, right? So like it's like teams that I've like wanted to root for, have rooted for, of like the more like tier 1.5 like contenders are also now going up in flames as they like try quite desperately to get up to that level, rather than like maybe even like partly I don't know how, you know, how these teams operate, but sometimes it feels like where you're at's fine. Like I don't think you need to like, maybe not so much in the case of like a Foot, but like I think a Paravision to go from like 1 year being like unranked like 220th in the world or whatever to lifting a tier 1 trophy in the space of literally 12 months. I don't think it's bad for them to like that they were at that level. And yes, they're not going to find consistent results. Or like, again, let's say we're like a Monty, where it's like, you know, keep this team together. You guys are finally doing something sick. It feels like you're actually clicking. Then I'd spoken to Gizmy quite a lot, and he talked to me about how the team like prioritize like VRS maxing, they call it, where it's like, we will not play any online tournaments. We only go to tier 2 lands because we know we're going to get points there. And essentially,
the idea they've even taken Lux maxing and turned it into VRS, man. Fuck
exactly.
Fuck the internet. So wacky
that's
now.
Gizmy's term. So it's like all of these, right, where it's like, like these kind of plucky underdog teams are also like kind of imploding around me. So I just feel like I'm worried that it's going to get really ugly from like tier 1.5 up, where it's going to be a lot of teams like with teething issues to start. And some of them, I think the Navi one in particular, that it just feels like a great upgrade like, as a whole. But like, I think some of them, they're going to regress before they maybe eventually move forward. But that regression is what I'm worried about, because it could be like a pretty like ugly next 3 months of like, damn, well, like it's going to be uncompetitive.
Right, luckily, because this is an ugly point, obviously beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so I'm just going to be like one of those androids in the Alien that actually thinks the xenomorph was beautiful. Like, look at it, incredible killing machine. Like, I want all these teams to be fucking insane, Ne0Kai. I would sacrifice every single team from position 8 to 28 in the fucking HLTV ranking to make the top 6 as stacked as possible. Because here's the weird part. This is also why I think it's ugly, not bad or good. Because here's the weirdest part about what you're saying. You do realise that might suck. Here's what's weird, you've actually mischaracterized it. People like you that like Monty and 9Z and Paravision, you're the ones that are sad. Your actual casual fan is more likely to watch the second season. Here's why. Because there isn't going to just be vitality. All these roster moves are going to make the top 5 or 6 teams uber stacked. And surely even the Falcons storyline alone means there's a chance now someone can make vitality. I also agree with Maui. So I'll take all the points. They're all valid, but I'm just going to spin them as good. So actually, if you look at the potential roster moves, I actually think, by the way, here's the coolest piece of news that's coupled with it, because people missed this. Valve did what we asked them to, which is before the player break has begun, tell us the next map and make the map change. So here's what's cool. Before people make their roster moves, you now know not only that like Vitality can lose and Falcons can beat them, but it's going to be Cash, which if anyone knows is a classic fragging map. Like the map pool now is probably going to be the biggest fragging pool ever. Think about it. You've got simultaneously Cash, Ancient, fucking Dust 2 and Anubis. What? Like if your team's, by the way, like the spirits of the world and people have like mad individual players, you could go crazy on it. Falcons themselves must be loving this one. That's even their permaban taken out. So I actually think look, it's true. The lower teams are going to be in a tough spot. A lot of them actually will get stripped out, etc. Like, let's start on that one. Everyone had the foot fetish, but the problem is the fact that Lounce is leaving to me implies 1, the rest of the core might just be leaving anyway. 2, if you look how shit he played at the end, it looks to me like maybe he even knew this was going to happen. And then also, a lot of people haven't bothered to think about this, right? Since he was the highest rated player and Foot has been in the mix these last few tournaments, I'm going to imagine he might even be going to a good team. Like, people are acting like he's going to nobody. For all we know, maybe he's going to like a FaZe or a G2. Who the fuck knows at this point in time? You can't really know, right? But maybe there's even a universe, by the way, where he's going to an RV. Who knows, right? No one. There's certain teams where we know they might make a move, but no one knows who's coming in yet. So the Foot one's a bit of a bummer in the sense Foot was a really up-and-coming, interesting team. With that said, as long as the players go elsewhere and you put the right, if Jugs Crabbenny goes to a good team and Jugs I can live with that. Again, it's all to me the end result of do we get the top teams? I'm with Maui as well. I actually think the team that got the most slept on at this tournament was Spirit. Bro, let me just explain something to everyone for a second. With no coach, they lost Anubis in overtime to Falcons. They actually comfortably beat Falcons on Mirage. And then they lost Dust 2 in overtime to Falcons. Like, they actually were like one of the more dominant teams against Falcons. And essentially, that's with nobody to talk to in the timeout. Like, that's crazy. So to me, if anything, my first thought, so I didn't pick Spirit to win the tournament after Falcons beat Vitality. My first thought is, actually, the potential looks dope for Spirit. Let's just get them after this tournament back home and get a coach behind them. In an ideal world, get both of the coaches, get Hallie and Sophic and do whatever that combo they're going to do where Sophic stands behind them and Hallie's the project. Get that going. And I actually think Spirit, I'm agreeing with Maui, they can be right up there with Falcons and Vitality contending with them. Also, please everyone tell me you're not actually going to pretend Vitality fell off. Like, they barely lost the game in which Ziwu was actually mad underwhelming. Like, they actually were right in that game. And as I say, just go watch on Dust 2 at the end how utterly bullshit that TeSeS plays, where he's got like 5 health or something. He's like shooting people above him and sideways on the X. That was nonsense, mate. Like, that was some like, again, this is part of the reason also why we all now have to overglaze karrigan, because like he was pulling miracles out of the people never did any of this shit before this team. This was the joke is, if anything, they were the ones doing screenshot meta to people, because how many times were they on low buy or force buy and they just pulled some miracle out. That's why it almost is like capped off by that ridiculous 3k with the normal just spamming of the USP, because how are you killing people rifles when you're karrigan and you have a fucking USP? Then on the other teams, if you look at them, I actually think the combination of there's a lot of really stacked top teams and Cash. I think if you're Na'Vi, you actually have to do it now, mate. You have to make some sort of a roster move. It probably is Imma, let's be real, but whatever it is, you have to gamble, because the worry now is even if you play as well as you did in the first season, I'm not even being alarmist, that might only be good for like 4th in the world. Like, that's actually going to be really hard to like win tournaments. Then if you look at the other teams, I know what you mean on the Furia one. Like, I don't actually think Furia will win tournaments, unfortunately. I do think there's a potential in the team, but one of the reasons, by the way, why it's actually not that crazy that Maui thought like Furia would win the final is I did tell people there is actually...
I didn't pick them to win the final. I was rooting for them.
My point is... But it wasn't impossible.
I tweeted my prediction. I thought Falcons would win 3-1.
The point is,
root for the
the point is, it wasn't at all like they couldn't have won the final. I think people missed a meta-contextual point, which is this. Because haven't we all seen karrigan? He's actually notorious for doing it. Have the hard side of the bracket, beat the other two contenders, and then lose to the lesser team in the final. The reason why is because to win, like, in his case, he had to win the Na'Vi, won the group stage too. To win, like, 4 epic matches in a row, it's asking a lot of anyone, bro. Like, at that point, you're going to run out of steam and have a game down. Meanwhile, if you actually are the Fury of the world, you haven't actually been tested. So even though, yes, on some level that might make you not as good, it might also mean that you just come to the final super fresh. And if you just have one day where your Kendar goes crazy, you just win the fucking match, mate. If Fury just wins like 3 clutches, you just win that. Even though for the rest of the tournament, everyone could go, you didn't play anyone good, you were overrated. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. If in the final you have one day where you go awesome, like you could have won it. So I even think Fury can't be totally discounted. They're still a dark horse, and if anything, surely in the second season they're going to have all those like high intensity, like fall and retires in like 2 months moments where you might just pop off for one event. And then also the last one for me is, as you say, there's even actually teams lower down the top 10 that people are missing. Like the rumor is that 9Z aren't idiots, mate. They also know Mayhem was having dog shit stats. They want to get Try, who's obviously from their fucking country, isn't he? And then even the Mongols one. Look, we don't know yet, but it starts to look more and more like maybe Mongols actually is going to do that. Let's just get in a room with Senzu and fucking figure this out and get him back in the team. Like, what do we do? So I actually think, look, I agree with you. If you want it to be that you want like the top 20 to be really competitive, that is not going to happen. If anything, I would say the next 6 months are going to be like 5 or 6 teams just bashing everyone's head in and then having a mega heavyweight fight with each other. But luckily, I'm here for that. I'm in for that. I'm all about that, mate. Again, I will sacrifice any open gun. The only one I'm mad about is actually the foot one, because I did think that was a rare example of like underdogs that could have all gone together and done it, you know. Man. Yeah, that was kind of a cool story. I will give you that one.
As long as Demon and Jugs go somewhere good, like a top like 15 team at least, I'm happy, really.
I also do think if they break the team up, actually, a lot of teams will just feast on that squad and you'll go to the different teams.
Oh, yeah, they'll be picked apart,
Right, okay, Maui, what is your ugly point?
Do we have a map pool point? Because I think I do want to.
No, you can switch it up if you want.
Okay, I'm going to switch my point. I actually think that, I'm making my ugly point about the map pool swap, and I actually don't mind that Cash is coming in. I don't love Cash. I mean, I remember I played it a lot when I was actually competing in Tier 2 NA, and I watched a ton of games prior to 2019, and prior to that there were tons of Cash games that were obviously being played. A lot of the best teams at the time, I remember NIP was great at it. I remember Space Soldiers had a little bit of a specialty on it. But I do think that it could be a little bit more routine than some of the other maps, but I actually just hate that it's in for Overpass. I actually think that Overpass coming out is a huge miss. I know that I don't think that Overpass haters even really have concrete arguments always as to why it's bad. I think the idea that it's slow is I don't think that's a bad thing almost ever, because, and I don't even think that's necessarily true, because you could always just do you see the amount of rushes? Is there really any other map in the pool that includes full on B rushes as frequently as Overpass? Because you'll see it pretty much twice per T side half.
By the way, a monster rush, if you do a 4 or 5 man monster rush, that's going to be one of the fastest times to get to the bomb site of any map, mate. Look how quickly you get there.
Exactly. So I don't think that those kind of, and then the problem with some people, I guess, is that defaults are they are a bit slower.
Yes,
but
true.
It's but in contrast to the fact that you can literally rush the other bomb site, you don't know what you're going to get every round. Until you start seeing the little dots on the radar move in a certain direction, you aren't sure. So I think that, from an entertainment standpoint, it's bad. I think Overpass was an incredibly fresh flavor that always kept on delivering in terms of how crazy the rounds could get, how many flanks could get pulled off, how many times misdirection is used by a T site that then sets up a bomb site hit because they actually rotated the CT defenders to try to fortify the wrong site. It happens all too frequently. I found it just extremely fun to watch on a tactical level. The individual highlights were exceptionally strong. KSerrato was sick at it. Mazinho could pop off 3 heads. I even started loving Demon on it from Foot, the way he would just be able to play around Monster. Just if he's unblinded, he has to kill 2 people in the span of 5 bullets, and he does it. There's so many great moments from it. And I also want to bring up something on the statistical level. Something that is great about Overpass is that it rewards the team that's more comfortable, because you look at, and that sounds almost like a tautology, the better team's gonna win, but it's actually more just I'll even break it down like this. Overpass was picked 11 times in stage 3 of the major, including, stage 3, the group stage and the playoffs. every single time the team that picked it won. Every single time. That's because people become specialists on the map, and it rewards you for actually picking it and being good at it and being well versed at it. If you have a good game plan on it, then you're actually going to come out on top. But like, even look at something like Dust 2 or Ancient. Like, people have moved away from Ancient as a pick because it is just way too much of a coin flip now. And I'll be real, that's going to be cash. Like, that is 100% going to be cash because it's extremely skill dependent. A lot of the bomb sites are in like the mid-short range angles. It's going to be
even
a lot of
comparable maps, right? They've got similarities to how the layout is.
I mean, I think that it's almost like a bad faith argument when people took it up against me in the past that Ancient is not very similar to Cash. Like, there are very wide middles there. The rotations feel generally fairly similar. Like, rotating from A to B on Ancient through middle up shelf is extremely similar to going up vent, like through middle, to try to flank,
And by the way, as you're saying, the reason also it's more randy is like it's the same shit. If you fight for mid on Cash, you're just flipping a coin. Do you get the headshot? Do you not? There's not tactics on that.
And it's also just like Ancient and Cash, both of the middles are just clusters of nades that are just who didn't get blind. Like, that's so much of the game is just who didn't get blind because the one team decided, oh, we're going to actually have two guys throw flashes from spawn. And that's the same thing. Ancient and Cash are like the same thing in that it's just dudes from spawn throwing flashes for everybody. Like, it's so this is just going to basically be like we have the same map in the pool twice. I can't believe like Cash and Ancient, it really is like a reskin version of it in a lot of ways. And so but again, I would have been okay if it was just Cash for Dust, Mirage, or Ancient. I think even Anubis maybe, but like Anubis just came back in, and I kind of liked how it's been being played, to be honest. But now that I just feel like now we're in a map pool that is so much less about tactics, and it's just trying to again, like, this is Valve appealing to the lowest common denominator average player, and that is generally just going to be the maps that have the least strategic depth and the ones that are just the most compact boxy angles. Like I don't think Cash has aged particularly well either. It's basically a Valorant map with 90-degree angles everywhere. Like, this is like Babby's first time in the map editor putting something together. It's all just like rectangles and boxes. It's like, dude, there's not even there's barely the most interesting angle on Cash is the forklift on A. Like, that's the one thing that's like, oh wow, it's like a real thing that has kind of odd angles on it. But everything else is just a box that's reskinned. It's so basic. So it doesn't, it's not a coincidence that the guy that made it just makes Valorant maps. Like, it's just not a coincidence,
I mean, I said the same thing. Like, when I saw the announcement, I just landed and that announcement came out. And like, my first sort of thought was like, and I kind of felt this when Dust 2 came in. Not that I really dislike Dust 2, but it was we're like leading more into like the puggy basic maps rather than the more like, ones we have to kind of think a little bit more, right? I think for me, like, I like Cash a lot, both in kind of like a playing and like a viewing it way, but I'm so baffled that Inferno doesn't go. Like, that's the one for me that I felt like Inferno Ancient were the two I was calling for a while, but I've got so like sick of Inferno as a map. I feel like changes have to be made towards that one. I think obviously at the top level, I think it'd be really quite complex, but you still got this kind of slight save meta. You've still got this where it's like quite boring, and even like in a playing perspective as well, it feels like it's a map that is being kind of lent away from a lot more because teams and players just kind of can't be bothered to play anymore. They're quite sick of it. Like, I know Mirage is one that people call for a lot in terms of a casual perspective of like, it is boring, but like Mirage for me always feels like it is kind of the greater of everything in a way, right? But like Inferno, I feel like still has so many fundamental issues, and the Overpass one getting taken out is the thing that kind of baffled me more than anything, just because it's the one that just got added back in. Like, it's only been in for one cycle. I can't believe that's the one that gets taken out, where then you've still got this Inferno kicking about, or an Ancient that is being a lot of people are kind of drawn away from it now, and especially in terms of like a playing world as well. Like, for me, who like kind of pugs a decent amount both on like Face It and like Premiere and whatever, it just never gets played. Like, no one wants to go there. It's one of the first bans in like so many kind of vetoes coming through. I feel like that was like the natural selection. Like, if Inferno seems to be like eternal and that's a map we can't get rid of, at least Ancient felt like one where you could go away and change it. I don't really mind. I mean, I quite like Cash coming in from a playing perspective. I'm interested to see how it's developed at all in terms of like a pro scene. But yeah, I don't know. I just can't believe it's Overpass of all the maps, because it just feels like we're leaning into like really, really puggy, which in some ways can be exciting, but I think it's going to become quite basic and you don't get as much depth behind it. And that's like, I think that's going to be annoying for me. But I did see one thing. I'm not 100%, I didn't verify the stat, but I did see somebody talking about it, like a stats guy saying that like in his playing career, like Ne0Kai was the best rated Cash player. So I think that can be kind of interesting. I think for them, and obviously the perma getting taken out was kind of interesting. Does this kind of buff Falcons once again even more so? Who knows? But I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like in the pro map, and I have no like anything against kind of Cash coming in. It's just more so the fact of that it's for Overpass. Overpass, a map that I enjoyed watching a lot. I thought it had a lot of depth. Like even the fact that we were seeing like very recently, like with that kind of like vitality, like 3 boost in towards barrels, like new things, right? It's kind of like I say a lot with like kind of maps like Mirage and Inferno, where it's like you don't see anything new on this very often, especially Mirage. You very, very rarely see anything like drastically new, so it is a kind of like who is going to be a better at the 4D chess in a way. But Inferno had become so bland, so basic, so samey, where you could like you could see things at like 1 minute 30 of like how teams are rotating, like right, this round's done, we already know what's going to happen, unless something like ridiculous happens or somebody gets like an insane spray down, which is kind of a rarity. This is going to be a pretty basic round to come through. 3 are going to save over towards B, and that's that, right? And that's kind of the issue I had. So I'm just baffled that it's Overpass over anything. It just felt like one of the maps that like not many people for me had issues with. I'd never seen anyone like complaining about it. It gets played a fair decent amount as well. Like especially like the tier 2 level, it gets picked a fair decent amount as well in terms of like pugging. It seems it's always in a lot of vetoes and whatnot. So that was the one that's just baffling for me. I don't know why they've done it when they've only just added it back in after making a change really early into CS2, taking it out, adding it back in, then adding it again. It just felt like it was like, right, you've made your changes, people are happy, no complaints. Why is this the map when there's so many other maps that are getting way more complaints now? And a general kind of public consensus, not getting played as much, and it's Overpass of all of them. So that's my real complaint. I've no obligation against sort of no objections per se against Cash. I'm excited for that. I've always been a fan of Cash, but I'm just sad that it's Overpass of all things.
My problem, now we all know this because it's been my take for years and years and years, is I don't even think we should actually judge maps individually. It's why I always hate when people say that thing that like, the map is balanced because they want it to be like 7-5, 6-6 every half. It's like, yeah, but if every map was like that, what would Counter-Strike be? Like, remember, part of what makes him balanced is things like how teams play tactically, what level of like fucking firepower do certain weapons have, how OP is utility. Like, I actually think what you want, the key word, you do want the word balance, but it's not on individual maps. You want the map pool to be balanced. So one thing that basically we're all getting at here is if certain maps play too similarly, it is just going to immediately reward teams that have the style that fits that map. So the reason why everyone's joking online that like this is almost like Valve saw karrigan win the major, we're like, fuck it, have him win every tournament. It's like they've taken out his perma ban Overpass, which by the way, it's not even the karrigan ban, that's the Ne0Kai ban. We all know that if you've ever seen Ne0Kai's teams. And then what they've done is add in Cash, which yes is one of Ne0Kai's most iconic maps, and it's just a map where you think all these crazy fraggers on Falcons will just dominate. Imagine what Modesty will be like on mid with an AWP. Imagine kyousuke just banging into the fucking B site. Like, it'll be outrageous, won't it? So it does look like, unfortunately, you've over-indexed into like raw fragging, which again, by the way, coupled with all the roster moves, is going to make it really hard to be like the Navis of the world and these like Mongols and these teams that didn't have fire vision, the ones that didn't have crazy firepower and trying to use a lot of tactics. Like, if anything, those are the teams that needed you to have a bit more like nuanced maps. And so the key thing, my problem is this. Like, it was actually a point Maui made years ago when they first added Ancient. It's like, look how similar this is to Cash. And also, by the way, it has similarities you could even argue to Mirage too. Like, you can't have all 3 of those maps at the same time and then have just 2. And you know what? Even though it's a different dynamic, I also think Anubis is a lot about like mad T aggression and fighting. Bro, you've just made the game brawl. The game's going to be brawling. Look, that can be fun. Like, it's why I do like what Anubis is now. I do like when people can do that on maps like Mirage. I think that's one of the most fun parts, but you want the like breather of, then you go to the Overpass, then you go to a totally different style of map that when you play it out, then it's actually like the different style of CS is rewarded there. I think that's one thing that is a problem. So I do think the issue here is like you've not only added in another fragger map with similarities, but then you've taken out what at the moment was the only map really holding out old school, like Maui says, you can do the fast hit, but you have to be coordinated. It's not just a pure rush. Then you can do the really long takes. Like, I think some of the players around here are fucking beautiful. It's just that it's really nuanced. It's the sort of shit where I get why people don't like it, because sadly, I can tell you, if we were doing Flashpoint and they would pull up a fucking fucking skybox and I had to watch someone in real time do the attack on it, be like, get to the fucking bomb site, will you? You're walking forever around all these corners, mate, using the utility to take every section of bathrooms. And you haven't even got on the bomb site yet. Yeah, I get it, right? That's not the sexiest play. But I do think it adds a different dimension to CS. Like, if anything, I think if you look at some of the teams that couldn't play that map, it showed the deficiencies in their team. Like, you think of some of the players that should be mega on that map and their teams just banned it or second banned it every time. So my issue is like balance, basically. Because here's the thing, I'm not against Cash. I actually think Cash was a fine map. As long as it's not that weird remake where it had all the jungle vines. I thought that was terrible. Yeah. The original one that had that weird, like, golden eye-esque fucking just grayscale style. That was an interesting map. And also, like, if you take out what I just said out of the map put, it does have elements like Ancient. Like, listen, Cash wasn't the greatest map of all time. It wasn't Muhammad Ali. But you know what? Actually, when you play on T-side of Cash, it is a little bit like Ancient. You know, you got to float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. You've got to be dynamic on the T-side, shake it on, and then attack suddenly at the end. So what I'm saying, basically, is Cash is clear. It's malleable. It's like, you missed the whole thing. I would have fucking killed on a desk, mate. That was unbelievable, whatever. I stacked like 3 things there. My point is, I just did more tactically talking about Cash than anyone ever do on Cash. On Cash, they'll just go, Nico, killed him with a deagle. You'd be like, yes, boss. And then you shoot him in the head and just go, haha, this is CS, not that stinky overpass where we have to do like flashes and stuff. Yeah, exactly.
I know.
I think that's the one downside is this. That maybe actually helps Ne0Kai's point earlier. It might just become like firepower rules the day and no one else can get in the game. I'm worried about that a little bit.
With Overpass as well, kind of the beauty of like why I like that map from like a casting perspective was like every time I would cast it, especially like the tier like 2, tier 1.5 level, you would see like so often like a 9-3 CT half, and every single time I hit the halftime break and the kind of the conversation like, this is not over, like there's no way, like because it's such a CT sided map. And I even remember I did a post game interview with Nathany and like he had come back from like a 9-3 on Overpass and I was saying to him like, oh, what did it feel like coming back, like and he was like, dude, this is Overpass, like we knew it would be fine because this map is so CT sided. It'd be like, as long as we can get 3 or 4 rounds, get a pistol, we're chilling, like we know we're fine. And that's
I'm just glad to hear Nathany's still alive. Cool, he's still out there.
Yeah, TDK are doing great, man. Made pro league. He was sort of saying like, you know, for us, like, and for a lot of teams and like kind of like the tier 2 and tier 1.5, like you get 4 rounds on Overpass T side, you're actually like, okay, well, we've got an absolutely fine chance here. 4 rounds on a pistol or a force by one or the other, and you're kind of in a spot where like we can actually make this because we know how C side it is. But now we've just got all these maps that are littered with like actually super strong T sides and having this ability to like super puggy. Like obviously Anubis is like that outlier of like the really T sided map, but the fact that it now gets joined by another one that should be very puggy, very brawly, and lead into a lot of teams that are very good with the AKs, that's the big worry for me. Like, and obviously we're not.
I also worry if the game gets too T sided as well, because like I do think that becomes a problem at that point.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, I've always said this with, I know we've kind of like changed, or Valve have changed like how they're doing the maps, so it's like 1 map a season. I like that, that's fine. But there's one thing that I've also thought for a while as well, that I still think we should get like some fresher maps, like new maps. Like we obviously, when we got the Anubis and we got the Ancient coming in, like community made changes coming through, like I would still like to see like another map get brought back in, or brought in for the first time, like bought by Valve, this, that, and the other. But like there's so many like sick community maps that I've played on that like are like proper testing, like, you know, the face of like map core and or the map core hub and stuff. And there's some really cool maps that I generally think at a competitive level would be awesome. Some of them obviously are really gimmicky and really like colorful, and they're just for like the casuals. But like from a competitive perspective, there's actually a lot of maps kicking about, and I've spoken to a few map creators and stuff as well, and they said like at the moment we have no real idea like if this is ever going to happen again. Like it was kind of like a one-off, you know, they paid this like 400k or whatever they pay per map and whatever, and we don't know if this is ever going to happen again. And that for me is kind of sad, because I felt like with a new game it was like a perfect opportunity to introduce a few more, maybe like once every couple of years. But it seems like we're going to be recycling, because naturally what I feel like is probably going to happen is Cash will come in now, and then in 6 months time it'll be like one of like Vertigo, Train, or potentially Cobble if you know, they push for it enough, and then which is going to be rinse and repeat. And I think a lot of people will then forget about, like, you know, they get like this nostalgia bias around these maps where they forget like the bad times of them because they only remember the good things. I think Cobble's a prime example of it. So, and I think Cash has his moments too, where it's like people forget that like it wasn't always just like sunshine and rainbows and whole, you know, cool map that I played on as a kid. Like it did have a lot of pitfalls, especially at kind of that top level. So that's the one thing I kind of like want. I want to see like a little bit more of like a freshness in a sense, but I think we're in this cycle now of rinse and repeating like old nostalgia maps.
Okay, right, let's switch up sections then. So we'll go now to the good point. So it's actually back on you, Ne0Kai. What is your good point?
Okay, so my good point.
By the way, you can see why this motherfucker's a online casty. He fucking smart mouth. He never stops, does he? But it's like if doing a fucking didgeridoo. He's thinking of the next point while he's saying it. It's coming out of his mouth. Luckily, unlike certain people, shout out Stunner, you can actually be trusted that the thought coming from your brain straight out your mouth it checks out. It's not just a bunch of nonsense and gibberish. I don't give it. Listen, I even somewhat like Stunner, but you know what? How I do. I shoot my shots. Come on, Ne0Kai. Where we going then?
My good point that I'm going to go for is that I really feel like the Cologne Major, from like a viewer's perspective, like set like a new high for me. Like it really felt like it was like they kind of delivered on all fronts, sort of despite as well, like a one-sided bracket. I've been to plenty of majors as a spectator and other like S-tier events as a spectator, and even been to Cologne in the past as well. And all have been sick. And up until this point, like from a viewer side of thing, Blast Paris was like my top, but like kind of quite a margin. It was like Blast Paris, Cologne 23 was the last one I went to, and then a few of the others that I'd gone around. But I really enjoyed Blast as a spectator, very fun in like the premium side of things, and I think they did a very good job of like making the fans feel good. And I obviously go with quite a large group, and majority of them don't work in the scene, so I kind of get like their input as well. It's like the group I was with, it was like I was a few casters from like the tier 2, and then there was like a larger extension, so the group was like 20 in total, right? And these people go to a fair decent amount of events, and I think kind of the general consensus that this just set like a new bar. Like it was so good in person at the event, really cool time being there, and like outside things as well, like external things that I probably don't even think ESL maybe had that much of an input on, but like I think Cologne as a whole is a very good city for majors, and it set itself up like everyone knows what's going on in the city no matter where you go. In the arenas, things are kind of good, like the prices on like food and stuff is quite good, where you don't really get that in a lot of other arenas. So I just think as a whole there really wasn't any like downsides for me. I think the only maybe one downside was that it was the busiest event I've ever been to, and I think partly because there was people like they like AI faked wristbands to get into like the top section on the last 2 days.
What?
And I actually saw a guy with one of those AI wristbands. He'd like
they're this like, advanced. Why are they on some like Ghost in the Shell shit? Like I'm hacking the system. Like what's going on here? This
like,
is crazy.
The font was different, but I saw him at like the he was like bragging about it. That's the only reason I saw about it. But he was like, oh, I didn't even buy it.
Is this actually just where like a guy looks at it? He doesn't scan it. He just looks at it. If it looks vaguely similar, they get it. Is that the premise?
There's no scanning. They just saw the wristbands. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And what the hell?
So I would say the last day was like super busy because like even like I was like walking around the Scrove like at all the different sections just to see the vibes and stuff. And like when we went to the top level, zero seats. Like people standing up, sitting on the stairs and stuff. I was like, there's no way. Like but it's because I think a few people had done it. But outside of that, I don't really think there was any downsides for me. Like, having been to quite a few events, either like working or spectating, this felt like the absolute like pinnacle. Like it was so good. So, like, I thought all the stuff in the arena, which I don't actually know if it went out on to the stream, but I think they did a really good job of like the entertainment side of things. Like
what were they doing?
Music team. There was like, OJ was doing like, small things with the crowd, right? Where it was like, what do you call it? Like, it's like not a hacky sack. We like throw like an American, like you throw a sack into like a.
Oh, right. So people hit it around like a bit like when they put the beach ball in or whatever, right? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. There was like things like that. Like I think they coordinated quite well of like every fan base had their section, like Roaring Bears. Like,
that's true.
Hornets, Furia. And like that made the arena atmosphere like incredible. They had like wristbands with colors that were like synced up to like every single moment of like a different thing. So like karrigan gets like, well, for example, when karrigan got that 3K, immediately every wristband is like blue and red.
Oh, right.
Like, wee woo.
I didn't know they still did that.
A really good job.
Okay.
Yeah, like super sick. They had like a lot of stuff like given away for free, which I thought was awesome. Obviously with the premium tickets, you just get like unlimited like beer and stuff, which is obviously a plus. And then like outside of that as well, you had like I thought like the music in the venue was sick. Like they were like playing all like the classics, it'd be like in like breaking between maps or whatever, they were doing like proper like everyone's singing like Sweet Caroline and that kind of stuff, which I felt like I never really had before.
Some
like,
football culture,
yeah, exactly. It was actually like really, it felt like going to like a Prem game. Right. Where it was like you had like 20,000 people singing songs they knew, or like they're playing like Metallica and people were like loving that and that kind of thing. So I really felt from like a viewer perspective, it's like the best event I've been to, and like I think maybe like even like the issue is I think it's gonna be hard to live up to that one. Like from going, and I was still try and go to Singapore and try and go to all the different like big events, but it's gonna be tough to live up to. I think they've mastered Cologne as a venue because obviously they've been there for so long, but now this time the other things they added in, like they had like the orchestra doing the intros, which they've done before, but it just felt a little bit more grandiose this time. Like the videos that they were playing, like about each team, were pretty sick, and like all the content outside of it, like the in depth into like like Monacy and Molodoi and this, that, and the other, Apex and whatnot. Those are super sick. So yeah, my good point is just that I just felt like from a spectator standpoint, this set like a new high for me, and I think it's gonna be quite hard to try and match it or even beat it.
I mean, I can't obviously contribute regarding the in-person experience, given I didn't have it. From home, though, it was great. It was fun to watch. I don't know if ESL set the bar in like a new place from the home viewer. I felt
that's what I was curious about, really. Like, did it match?
It seemed just like a normal event. Look, it was really good. But I didn't see anything extra personally. Yeah,
it was good. It I don't know if this was like the IEM. I don't know, Rio experience. It was pretty similar to the IAM Rio experience. I mean, they added more stingers, more little video graphics and things like that, where early on, I don't know if they kept using it though, but early on, like stage 1, they would have like people's names and then like a rifle with like a transparent, translucent rifle would be on the screen, and then they kind of dropped that graphic. I don't know why they moved away from it. Generally speaking, I think the one thing that was kind of interesting from the at-home perspective was the HUD. If somebody's in a molly or a smoke or a nade,
where it would show the graphic. Yeah, that was quite good. Wasn't it?
Or if they got shot, they got like a bullet through the picture.
That was quite intuitive. I thought that was good actually. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That was one of the best recent ESL innovations I've seen on a HUD. I don't really know if I have many other things to say about it. Like, I mean, we're gonna do I guess we're previewing another show. We're gonna do like a 4 horsemen review of the major and everything. But I don't know if I have like more good stuff to add, because it kind of just felt like a lot of IEM events to me from at home. So, but it was big. I mean, I wish that. Okay, I'll say this. I wish the crowd. I get that they couldn't do the crowd miking like they did at other events because of what happened last year at Cologne, and I feel like that
exactly
It kind of killed some of the excitement in some of these moments, because you would just kind of hear a muffled like, like
so that's what I wasn't sure about. Like the Magic's clutch, like genuinely like deafening.
No, you didn't get that as much. Not at all.
Oh, see, that's a shame, because I lost my voice. Like me and Yumi just like freaking out at that.
I can tell you the problem they had is because they had it at this event. It was in one of the playoff matches. They also had that problem where when they set the crowd mics up, it was next to some girl going, like every fucking. So they had to like cut that off, like halfway into the game. They had to cut that immediately because you just got unlucky with where the crowd mic was. So yeah, unfortunately, that wasn't a pronounced element. Unfortunately.
Okay, yeah. So I wasn't sure whether that my good point was like the same for the
but yours is about going in person, so I think it's valid. Yeah. Is that it, Maui?
Yeah, I didn't have much more to add to that.
Right, okay, first of all, I'll just say it just because I think it's a great opportunity to do it, right? Every now and then, one of the best things about social media is it's a bit like YouTube comments. Yeah, most of it's just crap, isn't it? Just stupid things. But because it's almost like you're crowd sourcing, like the most popular opinion. Every now and then, they get a joke that's a banger. And on Twitter, people have obviously come up with some mega ones. So along those lines about the thing that, like, it's true. Cologne especially, the reason I always tell people Cologne is the best CS event is because, first of all, the location means everyone in Europe can travel to it, basically, and it's very easy to just go even by train. You don't even have to fly if you're from like Poland or something. You can just take a train off Netherlands or whatever. And then also, I know this sounds bizarre because it's a bit of a diss to Germany, but because they don't have an actual German team, like, I'm sorry, big isn't good enough, who could win the event, it means that the whole event isn't just like on Rio, where it's like, if basically if Fury doesn't win, who gives a fuck, or if Legacy isn't here, we don't care. Like, you would never get a Cologne where if one of their home teams lost, people just didn't turn up to the semi-final. That can happen at other tournaments. Like, tell you what, if you have an event in China, that can happen if the Chinese are big in any of the esports games like League of Legends or whatever. So you don't get that. You tend to just get, it feels like a neutral meeting ground where all the fucking European fan bases go. And as you say, they actually have always at Cologne, from even 10 years ago when I went, done an amazing job of actually having whole sections. So it isn't just like you spread out and you've got like a Liquid fan next to a FaZe fan next to a G. No, you have the whole section that are the big fans, and then that are the Vitality fans. They
go back and forth, which is great.
So I think that part is cool. So here's the banger tweet that I want to read out, because it is actually also an example of where a Americans, even though I think Americans actually kill it for the one area American fan experiences kill sports is the fact that you can take your kids to the game and you can just watch it. I can tell you, I would never do that like fucking Middlesbrough, Newcastle, mate. Like take some 8-year-old kid. Some guy might just shout in his fucking face if he says the wrong thing. I'm not in trolling. That happened to me when I was a kid. I wasn't traumatized. I just became northern, so don't worry about it. But here's the banter, right? So someone once did a tweet that is a god tier tweet. It goes, American sports fans, defense. British sports fans. All right, lads, I've just worked up a song to the tune of Debussy's Claire de Lune about an opposing player's drunk driving charge. I'll count us off. Because that is what they're like. Like, what's mad about football hooligans is they put like mad effort into doing like really in-depth songs that are about inappropriate shit, like that your girlfriend takes up the arse or something mental, but then it'll be to like some classic melody of like Bach or something insane. You're like, why are you putting that much effort into that? But I agree. Actually, we have that in CS now. Like, to be fair, even when those like Vitality fans were eliminated, they still went to the matches, bro. They still turned up with the rest of the tournament.
They were there at the final.
I respect that.
The whole section with the flags.
There was loads of them, mate. Yeah, and also, even though I'm obviously not a big Furia fan, but it does look dope in the arena when all their fans have those like fucking drums and they're all dancing and fucking doing some Sam shit. That's kind of cool. It's unique.
Yeah, I think it's sick. And like even like Roaring Bears obviously didn't have a team at all like, at the playoffs. Like they were still like immense fans all the way throughout. Really good noise, like good songs all the way throughout. Like that kind of like it's like more football culture of like I guess what I'm a bit more used to going to games or whatever where you get that. Like I think it adds so much in the arena of what makes it good in a way.
Also, I do think, I just don't care what anyone says. I always thought, look, I obviously have my own extra biased reason not to like Katowice, but I always thought Cologne was always better than Katowice. So it used to tilt me that because Carmack used to look at his passport before giving his opinion, he'd be like, Katowice is our main event. Like, you dickhead. You have the best event, in my opinion, in esports, right there in Cologne. And you're like, hey, that's like the little brother. It isn't, you fuck. That's the best event. And Access, I think, by the way, is the best arena. I think what's amazing about that arena is notice how it nearly always sells out. It can fit something like 18,000 people if people don't know. You do know, like, there's a lot of venues that are massive where it's touch and go if you're ever going to sell out. Sometimes you don't even sell out on the first day. Like, you're still selling tickets. The Access always sell out. It's got almost the perfect amount to have a really big crowd, but without it being, like, risking or having half empty. So, like, 18,000 is mega if people go for an esports event. In the modern day, a lot of the events only try, like, 5K, 7K seaters now because they're scared of not selling out. Also, I will say this. It did get to cheat, though, a bit, Ne0Kai, because part of the reason it was epic was Falcons and karrigan. They made, though, every match pure cinema, didn't they? So, and if people don't know... The reason why I never bought the idea that Falcons would just be booed only is because karrigan can speak German. He is also legendary that when he goes to Cologne, that crowd, he's like the fucking maestro. He's conducting the symphony, bro, and they're just doing whatever the fuck he wants. Like, and he played the crowd masterfully in this one too. Like, it was fucking epic every time he would win a round. And it was pure pageantry. It's why you need actually also people who are showmen. Like, here's another area, by the way, where it's not a hate to Kicksan. Kicksan can't do that, bro. He's just playing the game and thinking about what he's going to do next round. Like, people like karrigan fall and the greats, basically, they also know I've got to weave in a bit of showmanship when the round ends as well. By the way, even if I lose, like, I even think now, one area I'll give props to modern players, they've actually gotten really good, not used on ticks, they've gotten really good at doing that thing where when someone does a crazy round, you do the passion, like, oh my God, what are we doing? What the hell? Like, you do the overreaction, don't you? Right? Because that's what basically Pasha famously did on the Snacks 1v4, if you remember, right? The big problem is, the Magic's one of the most bonkers spread out ever, and Zontics is just looking like, do we play next round? Like, are you real? Are you even alive? Is there anyone in there? Are you an actual android? Is this Ghost in the Shell? Are you just an android? What is this who is this fucking guy? It's outrageous, isn't he? Just no emotion whatsoever.
Because you have like Magix who's like in awe of what has happened. I know. Like an out of body experience.
No, that was also Banter the way he almost did. Here's what he should have done, Maui. He should have done that one from basketball. You know, when you score, you just go like, you look at your own hand like, the power.
Yeah.
Because like he actually, when he did the 1v4, he just sat back like, what have I just done?
What have I just done? He got Donk who's like losing it, and then Zontics next to it.
That was mega. That was actually that was personality. That's what we want from these guys, isn't it? Not like as we'll all go down in infamy. When they won a major, we're just like, not fussed, say yeah. Like, you just won the fucking major, you lunatics, in probably the best match ever as well. Why are you just chilling and goodbye, thank you, fuck all you. So anyway, I do think sadly it did get carried by karrigan. But with that said, it was mega. There was one detail though, since you're bringing up the broadcast, that I do have to reference though. I want to see if Maui knows. He must have seen this when he was doing the watch party. Maui, is it just me? There must have been, I think it was in the final, there must have been a tech problem, Maui. Because did you notice one map didn't have a desk after it? They just had one where instead they played like one of those DHL segments for like 20 minutes. You know what I'm on about? This happened, I swear it was the final or something. It was like a massive match.
Not a tech problem. Not a tech problem.
So they chose not to have a desk for a map because there was I'm not joking. There was a map where it ended and they played like a 10-minute DHL. No, you know that the Office skit they had. They had played one of those for like 10 minutes, bro.
That was semifinals map 1 between map 1 and 2 after Falcons won versus
there you go. Spirit.
That was they just played the DHL.
Because my problem with that one is listen. I do think they had some really good skits at this tournament. Like, by the way, the Zemu Simple one is fucking hilarious. The one where Simple's like some Palpatine shit, like trying to get him to say he's the GOAT. That's actually fire. That's funny. I even thought the one where there was another one that was really good. I can't remember which one it was now. There was another like Freya one. Oh, what the Freya Moses one? You know that one that they played in the final where like Moses is like the husband who's like been waiting years to see if someone gets banned on VAC. Do you remember that thing where it's like he's going through like a whole breakup and at the end finally the account gets banned like 10 years. That was actually really funny. That was a really good. Yeah. But that my problem is this. Oh, that DHL Office skit, it lasts too long, mate. It's like 10 minutes long. Like, please, mercy. Give us like a 2-minute skit where you hit all the jokes. Because that eventually just becomes like a TV show episode. I think that one just killed the hype. But anyway, that was the only one complaint I had. Aside from that, I do think it was excellent. I think it's a contender for the best major ever. I think it was dope.
I actually remember, that reminded me of one other complaint I had. Probably the only complaint. I don't know if it was on purpose because there was like sometimes where it had it and not, but we couldn't hear the desk in the arena. Which I thought was like slightly strange. I'm not too sure if it's on purpose though, because like
I think people said it was too low or something, right?
Yeah, we like just couldn't hear them at all. Like you could like, I think you heard Freya do the intro, and the second they got to the desk, like talking about stuff, we had no idea. It's like me and Yumi were like watching on our phones, with, like AirPods.
I actually think, as a guess, that there was. I think that was actually a sound fuck up because another thing also happened. I think it was on the final, by the way. There was a thing where Machine did that thing where he thought he was going out to the crowd, and he said some shit in German, like hey, get up, boys, or whatever, because he knows a bit of German. That didn't go out to the crowd, I can tell you, because like a second later it cut to he was talking. I could tell he didn't know that only went out to people on the fucking broadcast basically. So I think there was just the odd slip up. That can happen. Fair enough.
Yeah. But I think the desk thing, I'm not too sure if it was on purpose because there was like I think for the final you could hear them.
Oh, fair enough.
No issues. But in the rest of the tournament, like we couldn't really hear them, which was that was the only like annoying thing. So I like maybe the casuals don't really care as much, but I want to hear what the desk is saying.
Go to your point then, Maui. What is your good?
My good point. I figured we were going to talk about Falcons, but I wanted to just highlight two guys in particular and I feel like it's the major they wanted. So I was thinking of just picking one, but why not just both? So you guys could take it in whatever direction you want. But I wanted to talk a little bit more. Not that kyousuke is unsung, but I definitely wanted to highlight him and his glow up alongside karrigan. But also I wanted to talk about TeSeS. So you could pick whoever you want when you respond to this. But first off, I'll just talk about I think TeSeS' performance in so many games has led to him being, and I say this kind of jokingly, but I do actually mean it because I feel like I have a soft spot definitely for support players who get practically nothing but accomplish way more than they're even set out to do. I think that TeSeS has really shown his value on this team, especially in this major run. Personally, I think that he was showing a lot of value on some of the earlier iterations of Falcons as well. I'm never going to forget the way that he kept Falcons in it in the Melbourne finals, especially on Nuke, where he was able to... he was pretty much the best player for them at that event. So there's a lot of... I think that he's kind of over-delivered in a lot of different positions that have been underserved, and I really do appreciate the fact that karrigan has also seemingly unlocked him. And I know like there's like two sides of this. There's like the polarizing fans who will look at it where they just see like he just has a 1.04 for the Cologne Major. Like, what's the big deal? But it's like if that's your fourth best player putting up a 1.04
really
who's
good.
Not getting set up. Yeah, that's champ. Yeah. That's basically what Yuri was doing for Fury when they were winning tournaments. He had like a 1.07, I think it was. So if you're getting that out of a guy that's not set up, who is trying to actively set up other people, who's always pretty much playing for the greater objective at hand, then you're totally championship material there. And so I would give a lot to him, but I also found him insanely clutch. There were so many late round moments where he's able to just pop off. I think against Spirit, he had a 1v3 I think he actually had like 2 clutches against Spirit that were over like 1v2, 1v3. And then he definitely just in late round situations, like 2v3s, 2v4s, post plants, having to retake, any of these kind of awkward, tough situations. He is just so good at playing off of teammates. He's also, I like that it's easy for him to buy into the karrigan system, which to me is a bit more of an active CT side defense, because that's exactly what he was doing on Heroic when he was playing under Katie, and they were always moving around. They were always shifting pieces, always gambling to one side, and one guy would have to kind of be the single anchor on a bomb site. And so he's completely comfortable doing that or being the active player. And I just think that on a mechanical level, still very much just overqualified for a lot of the positions that he's playing in. Like, you don't see this guy. Like, if I actually were to say, okay, give me the mechanics of TeSeS versus a guy that's sometimes even the third or second best player of other teams, I'll just say mechanics v mechanics. TeSeS is better than Ema.
He's really sharp.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Hands down, he's better than Ema.
And like, really good, definitely.
And Ema's being set up for everything he's doing on Na'Vi, and TeSeS is being set up for absolutely nothing. And TeSeS is getting similar output from his position statistically. Like, that's how impressive this guy actually is. So I wanted to give a huge shout out to him. I just think that he has been totally slept on, always talked about in roster move discussions for Falcons as they try to upgrade. It's like, I don't necessarily know if I even want Yimpat for this guy based off of Yimpat's last 6 months of form versus like TeSeS now, I know in big moments can actually show up. So I'm super impressed with him. I'm just really glad that he was able to get a major for this team, because I feel like, you know, in 6 months' time, if they didn't put this tournament together and they didn't, you know, and all they found was a single tier 1.5 event. He would have got kicked. He would have for sure gotten kicked. And I don't think that he would have ever deserved it. So I'm glad that he was able to get one before anything else happened on this team in terms of roster moves. And for kyousuke, because it's a major win, so I'll make it a double point in a way. I also think that the way that this guy has been able to come together in big moments is a lot of it is partially due to karrigan. It's not like he is, to me, swapped up in positions particularly. Like, I don't think he swapped up like CT spots or anything like that. But I just think that now the focus on him and the way that karrigan's activated him to be a little bit more active instead of this permanently stuck turret on some of the spots that he played in the past, where he's moving around. He gets to trade off of karrigan. NE0Kai will run in first sometimes. TeSeS as well. Like, the fact that he gets to be a trade fragger and just always clean up. Like, I don't know if there's really that many better trade fraggers in the world than kyousuke, but when he is tasked to go first, God, it's just like him in a 50-50 duel with other top entry players is just, he's winning them at such an alarming rate. It's so fun to watch this guy play when he isn't just falling off or hard to describe reasons in playoff situations, which he was under Kicksan. I think someone posted it recently, or I mean, I think just the playoff stats were around a 1.00 where he was in playoffs before with under Kicksan, but now under karrigan, he's just become lights out. And so, yeah, I still stand by the take that Mikaze at times was the better player, but after karrigan got there, I don't think that case is really strong anymore. I think kyousuke has really just blown away the competition of people that are at his similar level of tier 1 experience.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree like wholeheartedly. I feel like with TeSeS, it just feels like he's so reliable. Like, I feel like you're getting so many moments. I mean, it became a thing like they're watching it, whereas like TeSeS in like a 1v2 or 1v3, like the consensus, like, he's actually got really solid chances. Like, his like mental of how he isolates fights and these clutches are insane to watch, like in kind of real time. Like, the cogs whirring of like, I take this fight, then I'm going to move in this position to then isolate another, and seeing that happen and so consistently with TeSeS was such a joy. But yeah, like kyousuke on the entries, I think on that T side, like how often you saw him like going with such confidence, which I felt like you never really got on the Kicks, and it felt like he was always like, even when he would go in as that first guy in for a lot of these fights, it felt like, I think he didn't even fully back that like somebody was going to be there to trade him, but I felt like he always had this like, I know if I get my one and then I get traded, the second guy who's traded me is also going to go down, and therefore we've got the site. And it became like a real confidence thing for him, where you can see like, I mean, kind of a point that we touched on earlier, like for kyousuke, like he just looks happier playing under this sort of system of Counter-Strike that we're kind of getting from karrigan. And I feel like that for me was quite fun to watch as it progressed. Like, you could see in even high like pressure and intense situations where it didn't really feel like pressure was getting to them. They kind of had this sort of like utmost belief of like, yeah, we've actually can do this, and this call we've got is steadfast, and we're going to kind of live by it. And it was sick to watch. I think like for kyousuke's ramp up, I think like what was it, like the end of playoffs, it was like 1.31 his rating, something along those lines, like an insane run that he had, but just so strong to see. But having somebody, as you guys put it, like TeSeS being your fourth best, being as good as he is where you see this team become like a real championship level team. And like, sure, you know, people can talk about karrigan's numbers individually as we've touched on, but like it doesn't matter if you get the other four playing as well as they do, and then they're also as reliable as they are as well. Like in these clutch situations, in these moments where you need somebody to get a big two-piece, like you can feel like you can back them. And then on top of that, you've got Ne0Kai playing at the level that he played at, which it felt like we would see in like spotted moments, but we wouldn't get as consistently. We got it all the way throughout the playoffs, and Ne0Kai playing as well as he did. m0NESY obviously doing what he does best, and sort of that is to be expected. But the fact that it's four players all stepping up in such a big way, TeSeS looking as solid as he is, like this, it's a really interesting kind of time for this team going forward now, if they can just keep it up consistently as a team into kind of future tournaments.
Yeah, the interesting thing here to me is this is also why the karrigan story was so interesting, because like I'm not even going to pretend that he like did anything fundamentally to m0NESY and Ne0Kai's game. I'm pretty sure they actually are players that are so experienced and so good at the game that they just get a lot of green light to do what they want. Like I'm pretty sure m0NESY does whatever he wants and always did. I just imagine he does obviously feel a bit more comfortable because now he's not on his own. Think about that second season last year. That was outrageous when he would just be putting on MVP performances while everyone else just participated in the final. It just makes the shots harder. It just makes it more pressure to get the next shot. It just makes it less fun to even own the game. So I don't look at Ne0Kai and m0NESY that much for karrigan. It's like you guys say, it's the other two players, because remember, kyousuke, I actually think Maui's not wrong. If the moment before karrigan joined, kyousuke was considered like a mild bust. The reason I say mild is everyone knows if you put him in a group stage, he has really good numbers. He's a really skilled player, but he had consistently not shown up for playoffs. As you said, his last 20 maps with Kickstarter, he had a 1.0 rating, and crucially, and they never banned this, he could never play Inferno either. He couldn't play Inferno, so you're almost always going to get that in a playoff series, by the way. And then he can't play in the playoffs. As people saw under karrigan in 20 maps, he's like a 1.3 rating. It's insane. He ended up being the highest rated playoff player from a player who couldn't play in the playoffs. And then you add in, he was even half decent on Inferno by the end. He even got that shit together, because obviously, as you guys point out, I think it's a masterclass what karrigan did on the T side with kyousuke. Like, what's so insane to me is this. I keep making this point to people. This is why you can't say kyousuke is the next Donk, because Donk actually isn't the best just because he has insane aim and he's aggressive. What he has that I've never seen any player who was a rookie have is he has like almost like the veteran understanding of when to do it, though. That's impossible. No one can. kyousuke doesn't have that. In fact, I think kyousuke, I actually do think under Kicksan, they did think he was like Donk and tried to send him in first a bunch of times. It's like, mate, that didn't work. I'll tell you right now. He just inted a bunch of kills. It reminded me of some of the bad days of when Yekindao would do that in Liquid, and he would just go for a play, and it's like, mate, there wasn't a player there. Like, I know you're trying to brute force it, but we have to like, if you look now, he isn't even close to the entry player. Actually, it's like TeSeS and karrigan now basically go in, and then as pointed out, kyousuke is like the best trade fragger you in the world in that tournament, mate. It was unbelievable. Think how many rounds. Also, this is why it's genius to pair him with karrigan, because I actually think essentially what karrigan did was, instead of you making a decision of when to go in, just follow me. Basically, I'll make the decision. I'm going to be your brain now. I'll go in. By the way, karrigan's always played that style of phase. That's why we call him the human flashbang. He runs in onto the site, distracts the opponent, they're shooting him, and then if you have someone like kyousuke, and did you not see this against Spirit of Vitality? How many times late in a round with like 20 seconds on the clock, where you have to get a goated entry, would like kyousuke just peek in, like hard peek Xantares style, and just bang someone's head off instantly with an AK? And when it would happen every time, I kept thinking, if I'm the other IGL, I'd be so pissed off, because it's like, yeah, that's a great call, karrigan, but unless you have some insane aimer who instants to me to the head like a Xantares player, you don't get in the sight, you don't get the bomb down, you don't win this round. So I felt like, especially those Anubis games, I think that's why everyone felt smothered on Anubis, because you could do every right play in rotation and counter flash and counter utility and stack the bombs, and then the last 15 seconds, kyousuke might just 2K, and then suddenly they're on the site and then they win the round. You're like, what the fuck is this? Like, what, you do everything everything right. You do one thing wrong and they get on. So I do think the transformation kyousuke was unbelievable. And even though I don't want to overrate it, if he can keep even something halfway between that and his old level, like something reasonable, they are going to be really dangerous. Like that's going to be a team that's going to do so much fucking work. And it means that then the karrigan thing doesn't have to just be for the major. Maybe he can still have dodgy numbers, although hopefully obviously levels his game up and fucking practices in the off season. The TeSeS one I think is actually a bit more interesting because the TeSeS one to me, first of all, that also looks like it was actually a product of this like hard switch into the Anubis. Bro, he is actually like Sleeper, one of the best Anubis players I've ever seen. If people don't know, he has the shittest role. He plays anchor on the A site. If you don't know what that's like, by the way, here's how the anchor on the A site goes. I'm sitting there, no one's coming. No one's coming. No one's coming. He's throwing a smoke. We're going to throw out counter smoke. No one's coming. No one's coming. Right, everyone's here now. They're all here now. It's only, you get nothing and you're rotating in a site where you're never supposed to ever win the retake on B, by the way. Or 4 people just run around that corner and bang your head instantly off. And if you instantly die, the site's gone and you've given the round up. That's why that site, by the way, that's the opposite of his old style. He used to be the entry player on fucking Heroic. He used to be the one they sent like kyousuke Stalin. So what's crazy about that is that requires a lot of like cerebral player, because I always think if you play a site like that, you can't even just do the like I take the duel. You have to like quickly fall back and hide and waste time and throw a flash and fucking call and com perfectly. And boys, if you don't know, his stats were bonkers on that map for the role he was playing. He had some number like, let me see, on that map he was like a 1.2 rating or something. Now, look, they all did well because they won the map, but that's insane. Like, and also, I agree, on that map, how many fucking CT clutches did he win, mate? So many. Because as you guys point out, actually, the crazy thing is, people will forget this. It was a narrative because TeSeS was the forgotten man. Everyone forgot he's also been in a major final and lost it. No one even brought that up, by the way. And then secondly, he actually used to be known as one of the chokers on Heroic. He was the guy that in the big match, you would notice that he didn't get that super crispy headshot when he rounded the corner and you go, ah, shit, TeSeS off his game, we're going to lose. Mate, he actually looked fucking... He looked like a player who didn't seem like he had the threat of being caught. He was playing awesome. He was playing really smart. He actually looked really cool under pressure. Like, what a fucking dope performance. Because I'm with you, Maui. I notice on all the shows I'm on, there's no analyst or expert hates TeSeS. In fact, most people I know think in the old Kicksan version, maybe he should leave because it might be better for his career. Maybe if he went to like a Mouse or a FaZe or something like that, he'd actually be a good player that could give him like his roles back. I actually think the most masterful thing here is he can stay in these roles if he plays like this, boys. It'll be an insane transition, but all of a sudden, I'm with you. You don't have to make a roster move. You know, before the whole roster move was, come on, let's just get Yimfa already. Why would you? I'd stick with this roster, mate. Like, I think TeSeS has more than earned his chance to play the rest of the second season. So, no, I'm with you. I think both these glopes are really satisfying, especially because... like, some of this might not be karrigan, but it's a bit suspicious, isn't it, that he walks in the door and all these things transform and level up. And lastly, I'll just throw this out there, because I said it on Twitter, but it's a bit that people missed. I love to watch, like everyone, those karrigan voice comms videos he puts on his YouTube, and he did one already for both Stage 3 and the CAC or whatever it was, one of those tournaments, right? And if you ever watch it, there's even a cool detail, I thought, which shows that Falcons is not what people used to say. You know, people used to say, it's just a team where they all get so much money, who gives a fuck, and they're just sort of playing, but they're not a team, and they're all just rich. Actually, I'll tell you why that isn't true, at least now. Because in this voice comms video, it's a point I made on Twitter, one of the coolest things is, because their team's full of stars, mostly when they win a round, it's people going, nice, Ilya, because he's got like a 3K, or kyousuke got crazy, and karrigan like, great job, fucking Maxim. One of the cool things is, because Ne0Kai himself has had to swap his roles and play himself like lurky roles, I would see rounds where TeSeS didn't even get a multi-kill. He got like 1 kill, or he just ran in at the right time. And Ne0Kai would actually, on the voice comms, at the end of the round, just go like, nice job, Renee. Because what he was trying to point out was like, you were in a dog shit position, I get that, but so what I'm going to praise you for is you don't have to get a 3K, mate. If you just contribute to the team and you make what the rest of us are able to outjob, I think that's dope. That even shows like they get it inside the team. It's not inside the team like, because I agree with Maui. If you kept Kicksan and they'd have just made like round of 8 of this major, TeSeS is fired and they are bringing in a traditional anchor player and it would be treated as he wasn't good enough to play in the team. I actually think in this team they also appreciate what he's doing, mate. I think it's working. This is why the Falcons story is so cool. It almost is the best case scenario. It's also why I will shade in. There's a reason I haven't done a bad tweet like, they'll be the best team in the second season. For all I know, the next tournament, they just bomb it, boys. And like they lose, like they probably should have won about 4 games. By the way, if any of these players don't frag out, it's going to be a problem if karrigan has 0.4 KPR. Yeah, that's all real too. Just for now, we're believing. We're just believing at the moment. It's all good. We're just believing, boys. Right, I have got an angle for you. I sort of touched on it earlier, so I want to see where people go with this. One of the things I find so weird is how fast I have a thing I invented. It's called narrative whiplash, which is where people have one narrative. So you're like, okay, I'm going with this. Yeah, I get it. Okay. And then all of a sudden they like 180 the narrative, like, and that's where the whiplash is like, what the fuck? 1 minute ago, we all thought the opposite. So I'll tell you one of the weirdest ones, because I'm going to say one of my good points of this tournament is I actually think this tournament restored a lot of faith I have in team spirit. I thought they looked fucking awesome. Yeah. Remember, it's not a meme. By the way, shout out, because I did see after like the first day or two, there was a video of some like Chinese type guy making those Jab-Jabich dolls. Every fucker in the arena had them by the time it was like the semis. What? That was $1 a joke. By the end, everyone was walking around with one, doing videos where they're making and so, right, that's the real reason why that's a joke, is because haven't we all the entire time in spirit obsessed about the coach? Me and Maui, the whole first year, 2024, was all about, is this Hallie's team? Does Chopper even call? Then the Magic swap was that story again. Like, wait a minute, did Chopper even do anything? It's sort of the same team without him. Then you had this thing with Sotfik came in, suddenly Tane's way better. So it's like, oh, wait a minute, maybe Sotfik brought something. So the idea you then have to go to the major with no coach at all, and the entire narrative of everyone is it's one of the two. It's either Sotfik or Hallie is the project. Essentially, we're treating them like the Blade of the Na'vi type scenario where it's just their... The idea you have no coach, and as said earlier, mate, you were like a fucking Anders Bloom hair, a very thin, see-through one that's barely noticeable, from making it to the fucking final of the event. And I think you would have, let's be real, if you'd have beaten Falcons, I think you just win the event, even without a coach. Yeah. I think that's totally plausible. So I've got to say, I don't look at this with any negativity. I thought this was awesome. In fact, if anything, by the way, I'll even throw this in as well. I actually think Donk played kind of crap in the Falcons series. I think actually one of the bizarre things about Falcons, I don't know if it's a stylistic issue, is the stars didn't turn up against them. Zero didn't turn up, Donk didn't turn up. Like, actually, a few of those people you needed to be the win condition didn't turn up to the game. So to me, if I look at the second season, I'm like, boys, let's just get the coaches back. By the way, that's implied maybe Hallie has like a serious medical issue. Obviously, hopefully he comes back from that soon. Just get real coaches behind Spirit. I think this roster looks like it can cook, bro. It looks pretty good to me. Thoughts, Ne0Kai?
Yeah. I'm in complete agreement. I really liked what I saw from Spirit. I think they just are looking excited. Bar, of course, they're lost right at that tail end. But I feel like this is a sign for me that it feels like if this is what we're getting without the coach, you can only imagine what it's going to be like when you have actually Softic behind them. It seems like they really resonated with when they kind of made that change. Well, not change, but I guess it was like he kind of stood in. But then, you know, as you mentioned, like Tane got a lot better. But it really did feel like as a whole, like this team are in quite an interesting spot as a whole now for like the second half of the season, because it's like if this is what they're like when they're basically not really calling that many timeouts, is this what it's going to be like for the future of them? And something that I even noticed as well when we kind of saw at this playoffs was, you know, naturally, like without the coach, the kind of, you know, the assumption is that when they did call timeouts or when they had timeouts kind of called against them, that it would be Magic's. But for me, it was Shiro doing all the calling. Yes. He was the one talking all the time. Yeah. And, you know, even not too sure what he was saying. There are a couple of snippets where they were like sort of like live translations.
By the way, he also played great in that semi. People missed that. Shiro's normally a choke. He played dope in that fucking Falcons game. He was really good. He looked
amazing. And it seems like he's so vocal. And it was like a point that, you know, like me and the kind of the group I was with were talking about, like pretty in their first game. It was like, oh shit, like Shiro's talking way more than like I'm used to kind of seeing from him. And I even kind of kept an eye on it when the rounds were sort of live and stuff. He was doing so much of the talking. And it feels like if this is now becoming a kind of a natural thing where like Shiro's like your secondary caller, but way more proactive doing it. And then you get Softic on top of that, who can kind of plug gaps in series, you know, intermittently throughout a map. Like it becomes a really kind of exciting time for them. It feels like he, as you mentioned, gets the best out of Tania. But then on top of that, you just get Donk back to sort of his level. He underperformed in that semi, but it feels like for me, like if they had gone to the final, I would have backed them to take Fury kind of all day. And I think a lot of people kind of had that sort of sentiment where they had picked picked Spirit as their win.
By the way, I'm almost glad they didn't win, because what would it say about coaching if a fucking toy toad won the major? Like, that almost needs to not happen. It ruined it, all the kids forever. Come on, bro.
That actually might be like a good ugly point, like a Spirit one. Be like, coaching's a bit funny now, isn't it? But yeah, no, I think it becomes quite. I'm like really looking forward to seeing what Spirit do as a whole. Like I feel like on the performance course from Donk, I think there was like somebody had kind of like called it like the ghost of Cologne, and as I said, it was Donk was like the ghost of Cologne, because you didn't get to see him kind of play to the level that he was at. But like as a whole, for me, it was like, you know, with Shiro now being way more vocal and a lot more confident. It felt like not only in terms of the way he was playing, but also just in terms of in the team and making decisions and feeling like he was kind of calling around himself a little bit on the fly. That felt quite good. You get Softic behind them, like this team looks super sick. And I kind of, where we come back to having like this sort of like big three at the top where it actually becomes really competitive. Like obviously we were always expecting Vitality kind of to bounce back immediately off the back of this, but if Falcons play as well as they do and keep that consistency up, then you get Spirit who played as well as they did without a coach, now with Softic behind them. Like it feels like it becomes quite a really like interesting, quite intriguing like three-way battle. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. I really liked what I saw from them despite the hindrances they had. But the whiplash thing was quite interesting, like see it, especially like the jab itch or however you meant,
because they were like the most popular team right until they lost, it felt like, and everyone just abandoned them completely.
Generally, online, I would say up until the final day that they were the most worn like jersey in the arena, like for like the like not in the like Roaring Bear section or Vitality section. It was like the average person, you would see them all wearing Spirit jerseys, especially like in their semi-final. It was like all Spirit jerseys basically, and then we went to the final. It was like all Falcons jerseys, and you could just tell that these people just raided the ESL shop like after the penultimate day. But yeah, it was like a big kind of narrative, because I mean it was even the sort of sentiment that I had a little bit. I was like, I don't know about like Spirit. I don't know if they're really like feeling like proper contenders. Like if Donk doesn't play well, are they actually going to be a team that can go deep in playoffs? But now having seen this run and what they had and how close they were as well, and actually like how solid they were in like the amount of overtime, like deep overtimes they had as well, and like were able to call themselves out of really sticky spots. And I know like everyone's going to focus on like that Magic's 1v4 as a whole. I still stand by that was a like fucking awful call. Like, right, let's just send like our 3 stars over towards A, and I'm going to QB sneak on the B site. Like that was like, that's a bad call. It shouldn't work.
Pulled it off though.
Yeah, he pulled it off in like one of the most memorable.
I know what you mean though. By the way, when I even saw that on the map, because I was watching that game, that was like, that's not even a tactic. That's like some shit you do in matchmaking. Like you go there last second, I'll run the other side. That's not real. Like you don't do that. It's nonsense. I know. It's absolute nonsense.
It's the brackets meme of like go A brackets team.
Yeah, literally, it's the Alexi
exactly like what it was. Yeah, he's QB sneaking into the B site and then like isn't in 1v4 because obviously it didn't work out. But he pulled off an insane clutch. If it hadn't happened, the talk would have been like, what the fuck was that call, right? And that would not be a call that would happen. Like, your coach would like berate you for making something like that. But I look forward to what this team do now, because like I'm like one of those people who's changed my narrative. I was like definitely like, I don't know how I feel about Spirit. They're in a weird spot. They're so inconsistent at times as well. Like I don't know when like they're fully going to get 100% or if they're just going to like taper off, as they've done a few times when they make deeper runs. They just kind of choke it out a little bit towards that tail end. But now I'm actually like quite high on them. If this is what they're like without a coach, I have like quite high expectations in towards the second season. Like this is into like every tournament they have. If Softic can get the visa and whatnot, this is like a contender for me.
I actually, in some ways, when I made my pick'ems, I kind of envied people that had the guts to put Spirit, because I thought the actual form of every team going into the playoffs, Spirit looked the best.
They were the best. Yeah.
I thought the Astana run combined with how they looked in stage 3, even weathering out that 9Z game in that fashion, I thought that was actually going to help them out a lot. I obviously, I don't think there's any team in history that's like regularly survived their star player putting up under a 1.0 rating, and that unfortunately is kind of what happened to them in the Falcons game. I can't. I know like there's been breakdowns before. I mean, of why Nico gets the better of Donk, and I feel like at this point sometimes it's almost like a mental block, the way that he can't beat the Falcons Monacy or the Nico Monacy duo as regularly as you would expect, because sometimes he doesn't even, it's not even just the head-to-heads versus them. It's like he'll be like losing to TeSeS. He'll be losing fights to, in ways that they shouldn't. To Spirits, I'd say to the optimists regarding Spirit, they did lose 2 pretty bad ecos, one on Dust 2, one on Anubis, where Falcons are on just piss poor buys, and then they just get a couple Deagle headshots. I don't think that's happened. I mean, of any team to say I don't think that's happening again, Falcons is probably the worst bet to take. Like they probably will actually pull that off a bit more regularly than others. But I also think that could go Spirit's way a couple times. Like of any team that I could say could do it back to Falcons, it's probably Spirits in the running there, because you have Donk with a Deagle, Tenier with a Deagle, Shiro with a Deagle. Like if they actually go for those kinds of buys in the future, I think that they also have a solid chance. So not that it's a coin flip or anything like that, because in the high pressure moment, you probably would have to say that you give it to karrigan. Like a karrigan led team will probably, but also like Donk I mean, it's the second time that in a major karrigan has taken down Donk in the playoffs. However, in the Shanghai finals, obviously Donk was able to one up karrigan there when it mattered too. So I've been liking this just back and forth that's been kind of building between them, because it's been Copenhagen goes the way of FaZe with the surprise vertigo, allowing that into the veto. Shanghai, super tense nail biter as it goes down to the third map in the grand finals, where Spirit come out on top, and here Falcons are able to come out on top. I'd say.
Also, by the way, they almost, even though they're not an Anubis team, they almost nicked that Anubis too. Well, that was really fucking close.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like this is going to be really interesting to watch it develop. I don't think that, like I said earlier in the whole show, I think that right now there are 3 true contenders, and then Na'Vi is looking for a fix. Who, like, Na'Vi is like my team that I still am like, of those 3, they have a chance to find an upset, if things go well for them. Like, they were super close to beating Falcons as well in the 2-1 match. So that I'm not counting them out entirely, but I just don't think through an entire tournament, I will say this, I don't think in any world, I think that this version of Na'Vi could have made the same run that Falcons made. No. And not just because like, if you had to beat Vitality, if you had to beat Spirit, and if you had to beat Furia all consecutively, that's probably a little too much for me to expect out of Na'Vi today, unless they make a change.
Yes. Okay. What about, let's go to the last section, which is obviously the bad. So, Neil, what is bad at the moment?
Yeah, of course, I'm going to bring in a little bit of like the sort of like tier 2, tier 1.5, whatnot. But like my bad point for this is that I feel like the sort of like time like gap is how I've put it, but like kind of the time it takes to kind of like naturally move up from like a tier 2 to a tier 1.5 or tier 1 project, and like the pathway to move up is kind of growing larger and larger by the week for like a variety of different reasons. It feels like, I think the first one being like the standard of events within kind of the tier 2. Like we've had it in the past where we had like things like the ESL Challenger lands, for example, which are a lot more of like the kind of the sort of like more like tier 1.5 teams who are like maybe contenders in the future, but like newer projects or whatnot. They're obviously no longer a thing. Obviously we had it in the past like the RMRs, where it'd be like nice like indicators as to what teams or what individual players more so could be the future, and that's where a lot of people will get kind of scouted from and whatnot. A lot of these are gone now, and in replacement we've had so many like tier 2 lands, which initially felt like kind of a cool idea. It was like, okay, there's loads propping around. There's like,
there's a Dracula land going on right now if people don't know.
Dracula, there's Dracula Super Land or whatever they're calling it, because like a much bigger prize pool. And then we had like, the Parkin guys who kind of came out, we're gonna do 20 lands this year, and BC Game were good doing lands. So initially it felt like it was a really cool idea, but what we've actually ended up seeing is we've got like BC Game who've like, kind of cut their lands now. They're like not doing them anymore. Then you've got Parkin who've gone under because there was like a way too over ambitious project. You've then got a lot of these like smaller lands who are either like run really poorly, or it's like a myriad of issues around them, especially like with things like, which is kind of like following on from this point, is like the issues within like the tier 2 now of like match fixing and on all the rest. It feels like we're getting, for me, what is feel like one of like the weirdest times within like what would be like natural progressions of moving players up is like so difficult right now, because like scouting and like taking gambles on players feels like it's like harder than ever, because you've got this sort of like thing in the back of your mind where any decent like tier 2 team at the moment is like half the conversation is like, are these guys even legit? And as we're seeing more and more often, the answer is no. And it feels like the general consensus when speaking to players who play within the tier 2 is that like half of the teams that feel like they're like really quite good, that they aren't legit, because as we see, whenever they go to LAN, they can never have even like a fraction of the same level of performance. And it feels like at the moment it's a weird thing. And it's, I think my last time I was on here, I spoke about my bad point, or I think my bad and my ugly point was that I thought that tier 1 scouting and tier 1 like talent, picking up talent was really poor, right? And I think, I'd use people like, I think like Kersey was one of my examples, and then like, I think Jacob was one of them as well, right at the start of his like phase tenureship and whatnot. I feel like these like, there's plenty of better players, but I feel like actually it's going to get even harder now as well, because you've got very few like reputable lands where like players can prove that they can play like on a quote unquote stage or like in a LAN environment. So you don't know if you can take that like risk on them being able to go to even like a studio environment because they're just so used to playing from home. Or then the players that do feel really good, we're getting like every kind of like month now, we're getting like a new like decent prospect player coming through who actually then ends up getting like banned by Across or is banned for match fixing or this, that, and the other. And it's becoming, I think, harder and harder to really like find like a proper natural pathway, because we don't have these events that were like the middle ground between the tier 2 and the tier 1 anymore. And it is just either low-end tier 2 lands where you either get very, very poor opponents, because a lot of them are open signups as well, so there's very poor opponents who just go in there to take a chance, or you're getting the likes of these like slightly bigger lands, but these teams aren't really showing that they can kind of prove it. And I feel like for me, my bad point is that I think tier 2 is becoming like a real like ugly scenario at the moment, where like tier 1's getting better and better. It feels like, you know, month on month, where the events are fantastic, the teams are great, this, that, and the other. But the tier 2 seems to be getting worse and worse, where it just seems to get like more and more riddled with problems and controversies, whether it's like the lands or people not getting paid as well. It's quite a big one. That seems to be a much more common thing that I feel like I've heard in like the past, or like my career, like the last like 6 years or whatever. It's like teams not getting paid, or tournaments not paying out teams, which is another big issue. And then those tournaments getting bankrupt, they lose out of this money. But that then offers up another question, like, because the whole thing around VRS and what these teams play for is they want prize pool for the VRS points. But then there's like a conversation that's now starting to like open up in a lot of these tier 2 things. Like, does that VRS points count in a way, because it's all based on prize pool if you don't actually ever get paid any of it, right? And then also, how do those teams stay afloat as a team if they can't then pay out these salaries because they're not getting any of these prize pools in? So I think my sort of like bad point is I feel like really the tier 2 at the moment is in a really quite ugly spot, and therefore it's much harder, I think, to naturally find these players that move up in towards tier 1. Obviously you have the outliers of people like your Donks and your Koskes who are like, we're always naturally going to make their way out, Makaze as well, because we had the Academy League system, which was like I think a perfect time for it. But without the Academy League and without the ESL Challenger Leagues, I mean, even like, you know, what we had in the past, like bigger TOs doing smaller events to sort of like naturally give a kind of pathway up, I feel like we're not having that anymore. So that's my bad point. I think like tier 2 is in a weird spot. Match fixing tournaments are really shit. And on top of that as well, I feel like it makes scouting very, very difficult for like that kind of new generation to move forward.
It's a great point. This is a really, really good point, because I mean, I just looked it up as you were speaking, that in 2026, what we used to consider, I would say, what now we kind of call the tier 1.5, the term's been thrown around a little bit frequently. I'd say this year and last year more so. On Liquipedia, I would just kind of consider it what they say the A tier event. The A tier event is the event that usually is like, it could have like 16 teams, but usually the prize pool is south of $500,000. So you're getting like your 100K events. Back in the day, like you said, this would be kind of the ESL Challenger event. Prior to that, it would have been the DreamHack Opens. What was really, and so those numbers have completely turned on their heads. So for context, in 2023, according to Liquipedia, there were about 20 A-tier events. 20. In 2026, there's 7. It's been like just completely gutted. A lot of the same TOs that were operating back then are just completely defunct and or not running events anymore at that level. I mean, the only really like tier 1 TO that's even running an A tier event now is PGL running a single PGL Bucharest, and that's it. Like that's the only one. Now you have stake ranked tournaments, you have Asia Championship League, you have this XSE Pro League, you have these like it's more like Asian events that are kind of popping up seemingly, but you've
and the
sort
Asian
of lost.
Ones are only Asia as well. Like Asia Champions League is only for Asian teams, so European teams aren't like even generally like going to them as well. Yeah, and that's a huge that's a huge negative, because back in the day, so many great stories for players were founded in what is now doesn't exist. I mean, there was the DreamHack Opens where we saw Movistar Riders with Sun Pius get their 2022 victory, and then they went on to have a playoff run at IEM Cologne after that, which really kickstarted Sun Pius's career.
Yeah, absolutely.
In 2020, was it 2020? Oh, geez, there was another DreamHack Open, I think, that Outsiders won, and then I think that keyed them up to basically it helped them win Rio in a way, because they were able to find some success there.
That one,
Rotterdam, I think it was Rotterdam.
That sounds right. That sounds right. Like and so you had these teams that, because they were able to prove themselves on, I think the last trophy that Elige won was a like an ESL Challenger event against Falcons in the grand final, where they Complexity won over them. It was like the first trophy that Complexity won in like 10 years, actually, which is kind of sad when you think about the organization.
Yes, it was DreamHack Summer 2024. Yes.
So there were. Yeah. So there's so many great, and that those kinds of wins and those kinds of moments are, not everybody's going to lift the Cologne trophy. Not everybody's going to lift the Astana trophy. But some people will lift those. It's still, I think it's still Floppy's profile picture to this day, him holding that trophy. And that's, and that's a guy that's had he had a really, it's a serviceable career. One that I think many people, that is the 0.01% player never winning a true S tier trophy, but still lifting another one. And so that can be the defining moment in their legacy as well. I think that the death of this kind of space has kind of just been because of what VRS is, where now, because you're generally taking invites from the very top, a lot of teams are either you're either getting you're either putting forward a prize pool that has elite teams, or I need to know the VRS stuff a little better, but I think you have to start from the 12th or 16th best team if you're doing some other type of event. And that kind of, and I think that also on the economic side, I just don't think that these TOs have as much incentive to do that, because the numbers sort of speak for themselves, that the viewership, watch hours, it's just magnitudes different if you're able to get a Vitality through the door, if you're able to get a Spirit through the door, Falcons. And so even though it might look like the operation costs are so much higher of some of these, if you kind of have the framework and infrastructure to put forward an S tier event, it's kind of just better. It's weirdly better bang for your buck, because the 10x in viewership obviously covers the 4x in prize pool. So it's a bit of a shame that it's gone this way. It feels like we've lost a lot in not having a middle ground here of the A tier events. So I think this is it's just a great point, Neo. Thanks.
Obviously, I don't watch many of the tier 2 tournaments. In general, I only watch either the big games if it's a team I know, or I just watch them for betting purposes if I know I'm going to bet on that team later on or whatever. So I will say, one of the things that I find really underwhelming is I don't even blame who are commentators who do that level, or new around us like Ted, who I do a show with, because what he's trying to do is just look at what he sees in those tournaments and who the best is. And then when he sees they get an invite or they get into a proper tier 1 LAN, he wants to bill it as don't strike this team off they're not shit, online they're doing this. But the problem is the amount of times that I don't even need to have watched it and just go cynically, they probably won't do anything, Ted. Does that team even have any eventual players that'll be on a top team? Don't know about that. Again, they're doing it, that's online. That's those. The problem with the tier 3 lands for me, this is why the point you're making on tier 1.5 lands is quite key. When a tournament is an ESL challenger at a DreamHack seasonal event, that means it is going to be a setup that ESL has run a million times, and it's going to be quite a professional event, as you're saying. Basically, that event is actually quite similar to what a big event was 10 years ago, because we didn't have the giant arena events as much back then, except for majors. So the point is, you're going to experience the level of professionalism where at that tournament, you can, to some degree, just scale down the results and go, that seems legit. That team actually had to, for example, if you were at those tournaments we're talking about, ESL Challenger Rotterdam, you still play that in on a stage in the final. You still have all the setup and the ambience of it's a big match where you have to win under pressure. That's sort of if some of these tiny lands that people don't know, that one that FaZe tried to sneak in the major in HLC Belgrade, that looked like a land from 20 years ago where you're just all in a dark fucking room and the finals are the same table you were sat for the group stage. Those are absurd, some of those ones. Those ones don't feel like real CS. So the problem with that and online play is, I was thinking of it while you were talking. I'll give you a few team names, and if you're only watching tier 1, you're going to, who gives a fuck? It's no, these teams online are constantly relevant. So how about when the Alliance team had that male 09 guy? The Alliance team online, by the way, could beat a bunch of these teams. Even at the tier 3 lands, they were beating real teams like the BC games of the world. K27, that Russian team, they mix it up with anyone online, mate. They went to that PGL Stardust, lost every fucking game. At this major, Ted tried to hype, because they've been really good in online play, Sinners. The problem is, this will make your point for you, Ne0Kai. I looked at the Sinners roster, and I told Ted, I'm just going to say this isn't going to happen, mate, because when I look at their roster, they don't even have the one thing I need for a team I don't watch, which is, that player one day might be a great player. I said, if you look at the Sinners roster, none of those players, I'm sorry, will probably ever play play for a top 10 team ever in their career. Like, fair play to them. They've put their hard hat on. They've gone to work in tier 2. But as you saw at the major, it's just kind of whatever. Once you actually throw them in with the big dogs, they drown. And then another one, this is quite irrelevant because we know the players on this team, but they just never made it. How about Big? Big actually destroyed that small land circuit. If people don't know, they had a streak where they were just winning those small lands for fun every week. It's just people don't watch that level of CS, unfortunately. And then even coming into the major, we all thought they should be like a dark horse, shouldn't they? They barely even made it through stage 1, boys. They could have actually just gone out NRG and they wouldn't even have been relevant. So I know what you mean. It has made it, first of all, it's made people somewhat invalidate all the results from those small lands. They're not kind of like feeders like you hope. And I actually think the bigger point that you alluded to is it's actually really hard if you are a top team to do what you want to do of go, right, take the next best tier 2 player and let's bring him into our team. Like, you have no idea if those people are going to sink or swim right now. It's a massive gamble, unfortunately. It's why, if you notice, I actually think people don't recruit from those teams now. What they recruit is they recruit players at that level that are in their academy squad, because I think that's different. Then you can watch them in the scrims, you can talk to their academy core. I think it's different when you do that. You can trust in a way you can't when it's like, again, like if you go look at these teams I referenced earlier, people like K27, you would think from the online player that's where you'd be getting the players like BC Game or something. If you want Russian speaking players, sure, you're getting these. No one, people are ignoring these teams. It doesn't matter what they do online. I'm with you. I think it's a rough situation for the bottom end of the scene. It doesn't feed in like you'd hope.
The only outlier that I generally think that we've had over the span of the last 6 months is this Magic team. But like within the sort of like the tier 2, like these, like I think for like also like commentate like the tier 2 a lot, like I like knew these guys would end up having a run at some point. Like I remember at Astana, like day 1 of the desk before we had any games, I was like, this Magic side are my dark horses for the playoffs. I think they can make a run. It was like one of my first points I made when we were like going through all the teams in the bracket on the start of the broadcast, but it was like 4 a.m, so it was like no one watching, right? But they ended up making it obviously to the playoffs, which is sick for them. And they are the only team that I can think at the moment that have like talent that can make it out. Like Masfal and Tenzi, I feel like should at some point get like a tier 1 invite. Like they are good enough for me to be on like a tier 1 CIS team. They're super, super sick. But like outside of them, like there really isn't like any other teams that are like coming up through the tier 2 because they don't really have the opportunities. And then the only lands they can play is like, like Monty, for example, like who like kind of came up through like the VRS maxing as they were calling it. They were playing like, Copenhagen Gaming Week, where they're playing like half of the time like random mixers. So they're getting VRS points and they're getting good wins and like they're winning that tournament, but they're not playing like really sick teams. So then where you kind of like you feel like they hit like a natural ceiling and there's no like natural kind of progression up. So yeah, it's a weird time. I feel like it's gonna make like quite a big like rift between like the real top end and like the bottom end, where it felt like it was a little bit more natural because you get like at these challenges like the mixes of where you get like the complexity in the Falcons, but then playing against like your alliances, your slightly more like young teams who have got like a couple of stars who could be for the future. But I feel like we just don't have that anymore.
Right, okay, do your point then, Maui. What is your bad point?
Yeah, I can get into mine. I mean, I had a... I'll see which one, because I kind of changed my pick last second, and then... I'll do this. It was kind of be my original ugly point. I think it's kind of more fun than my bad point, which we'll see the results of later, because it's more just like stuff in the rumor mill. But I think my ugly point now, I'm turning my attention to now that Nico got his major, and he was the best to not have one. I'm looking at the guys that I think are next up, the guys that are now who have been playing, because now the sob story moves away from the king who never had his crown, and now we've got to find our next guy, so I think I'm looking at somebody like Elige today, who with the peak he had in his career, I think he's kind of on a similar career trajectory that Nico found himself on. And there maybe is a light at the end of the tunnel, which is kind of why this was an ugly point instead of a bad point initially for me. But I think that Elige now is the guy that I'm looking at to be the one where nobody deserves a major. You earn it. I firmly stand on that. Doesn't matter how many hours you give to the game, how many rosters you go through, how many iterations. It's about performing in the big moments and being able to deliver against sometimes the odds. I think that Elige at times had some great teams around him, but it really feels like his window may have slipped. The reason that this was initially going to be ugly is that there are some rumors circulating around Liquid and what they might be doing next. And I think that's like been more or less confirmed. I'm not like a leaker guy. I'm not a guy that like, is digging. I'm not asking people, but I mean, like when JT was playing Pugs with Elige, Goose Breeder, which is Elige's girlfriend, and Malbs, I think everybody in their right mind knew what was happening there. So that's been happening for over like a week now. And now that it's rumored that he's going to be going to Liquid, you could see this team turn it around a bit. But I do think that JT today looks like the better in-game leader than Shuhei. Not the topic right now for Shuhei's fall from grace, but the fact that he's still so far away from it kind of leaves me as the next guy who still is just kind of without the hardware necessary to really punch into those GOAT rifler conversations, despite the fact that the individual level that Elige held at different times in his career probably merited him being at least included in the roundtable discussions.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I feel like he's probably the next up. I think there's like even a couple of that you could throw out there, like Aurora, obviously like another example of like a player, or like a Frozen, obviously not as tenured, but like similar thing of like what their peak was like versus like the still not lifting a trophy. I feel like they're kind of all in that conversation. The Elige move, if that does kind of come through, or not the Elige move, I guess the JT move comes through, it feels like it could be like, maybe you'd hope, a bit of a resurgence for a region that needs it. But there's a few players now I feel like who become into that conversation of who's like this next sort of like hasn't lifted the big crown, hasn't got that big trophy, and I feel for those three with like Keserato and Frozen as well feel like the next ones for me as well, of like who we maybe like kind of focus on like when will they get a chance. I feel like in a weird way as well, like Frozen's probably the one that's in like the weirdest spot, because like it's like obviously, if he gets his move, yes, then maybe it's fine. I feel like naturally he should get a move, but there's also the other side of in this sort of silly season of Rostermania that he doesn't get a move and he's stuck on a bit of a dead team, and he has to like, kind of maybe even waste some of his prime years playing it at a subpar level. And for Keserato, in a weird spot where like this major kind of felt like maybe that their best chance that they're going to get, like this is a team that don't really go that far and are not expected to lift these sort of trophies, and this was their best chance, especially because of the bracket that they had like essentially kind of a free run to the major final, and then to fall as flat as they did. So has he now squandered his chance? Is he going to be one of those players like who never got to lift the trophy the way they like, we kind of expected him, like maybe somebody like, like in the past, like a Guardian, never got to and whatnot, right? Like, is that going to be that sort of like similar conversation? So yeah, like, I agree. I feel like Elige is probably that next one of like the most tenured player who hasn't lifted it, but then with Keserato and Frozen as well, of like what they've done, their peaks as well. And maybe even in Keserato's case, like, is he like at or like past his peak now, and is especially the teams he's on, are they ever going to reach the level like that they have just now? Like, is it ever going to get any better than a major final for him? Maybe not. And same for Frozen, also been there but never lifted that trophy, and is it going to be the same thing where he's now potentially stuck on a dead team, or even if he gets the move, it might not kind of exactly pan out as intended. So yeah, I get what you mean, where you're coming from. I feel like Elige, but again, it's like also that question with Elige, like, is he also past it now, like past his prime? Like, can you like rely on him to be that guy to sort of, in the same way that we saw from Ne0Kai at this playoffs, I actually rekindle that flame a little bit and actually bring that level of playoff form that maybe I don't really expect or think that Elige really has it anymore?
Well, even though that was all rhetorical to make your point, I'll pretend it was real. Yes, he can. He can do all those things. He's also in my group of people I believe in with a religious fervour. I will say, one of the downsides of Elige is this. I do think compared to some of the other ones I like support and always ride for in the sea, his problem I've always felt like is he is one of those people who, maybe he's a bit like Ne0Kai, he's a bit of his own worst enemy, unfortunately. Like, some of the problems he's created were, he made the rod for his own back. I mean, at this point in time, one of his issues I can tell you he's going to have in his career is the only place left is Liquid. That's the only big org that he has a connection to that he can stay in, because unfortunately I do think actually that phase period where everyone could see the stats were good and the team wasn't terrible, I think the fact that they kicked him when like Brokey was dog shit and fucking Jacob wasn't even some top player, I think that signaled to the other teams in the scene like, you just don't really want to work with this guy, like he's just got issues. And I've never, by the way, I've never thought it was anywhere close to like he's destroying the team fabric. It's more just like he's just a bit tricky to work with. Like, the problem is if you have a choice of him or a player that isn't like that, you're just going to pick the player that isn't like that, the one that isn't, it doesn't cause you problems. With that said though, I do think on Maui's point, like, I'm going to do like a Thorin versus Reddit on this soon. I was shocked how many people on those Reddit threads where the whole topic was, right now Ne0Kai's won his major, who's the next greatest player ever to have won? Bro, there was a lot of people trying to poo-poo the Elige one, going like, no, he's not in the same category as a Guardian. I saw them all play, he is. Like, if you don't know Guardian's career, you've overhyped him. I feel like Guardian always gets slightly overrated because people couple him with Kenny S. Bro, Kenny S was the best player in the world. At one point, we actually thought in early 2015, Kenny S was the GOAT. He was unbelievable. Guardian has times where he was the best AWPer in the world, but that would be like briefly. He was always going, by the way, head to head with the likes of Kenny S and Skadoodle and the other AWPers back then, Fallen, it's early Simple. Like, but Guardian had like a couple of years where he was mega. He had a couple of years where he himself could be a bit chalky. He was on some dodgy teams, he was on some really good teams. He had a very good career, but like the idea that like Elijah's some tier below, definitely not. If you go back to when Liquid really came online, like 2018, 2019, going forward, like Elijah was the best player on the team. He was the 1A option. Yes, true, they had a stacked team. There was times where TeSeS was a 1B or NAF was, but he was a really fucking good player. And people forget in that 2019 year, I always made this point. I think that's one of the only times in history where actually you could see that the shift for HLTV had become, we give it on stats, the MVP, not the winner. Because, by the way, in a normal tournament, Elijah would have been the MVP of that Cologne. He had like a 1.25 rating or something. The problem was, Zebu smurfed at that one. Had like, I think, like a 1.39 or something absurd. So they gave it to Zebu like that. Again, if you can be on a team that wins a Grand Slam as the 1A option and on a team for 2 years that's contending for the major every time and is top 2 in the world, and you're the player that like is getting MVPs and in the... Mate, you are an all-time great player. Like, I do think, sadly, every fan does this, I've learned from football. Like, right now, if people don't know, football Twitter will actually reduce your IQ from just reading it, because it's people who are 15 years old attempting to use today's performances of Ronaldo and Messi to explain why they were never actually good 15 years ago, which is like, what are you talking about? So I feel like we're doing the same thing now. There's people who are just thinking of current Elysian Liquid, and they're acting like he always was roughly like that. Like, mate, he was way better than this. Like, I'll give you the comparison. Elige, when he used to play in Prime Team Liquid, was more comparable to someone like, let me think who I'd give now. I'd say it's almost someone like Heavy God. Not the style, but the fact that you just know they'll perform every game. They're not the best player in the world, but they're really good. And for their team, you know they'll be the best player on their team. Like, that's a really consistent player. I'll even throw this out there for people who don't know. That notorious Berlin run where Liquid was the favourite to win, but it was after the play break. Elige carried that tournament, if you don't know. It was the others that shit the bed. The others had some bad performance. I think NAF or someone had bad. Elige was mega in that tournament. He actually had a really good Smurf performance. So I think actually he's getting hated on. In terms of what he can do now in his career, this is why I actually love the JT move. If you've hit a point where, and by the way, I recently did a roster mechanic episode with Luzra Poser on Liquid, and basically one of the most shocking things his like data was able to prove was they're not even doing in Liquid what we all thought they were going to do when they got Malbs. Do you want to know the reason why Malbs has good stats in Liquid and Elige has bad ones? We all thought they were going to bring Malbs in to be like the bait and then Elige trades it. It's the other way around. They've actually made it that Malbs does that, and Elige is the one like back in FaZe Clan who goes in first. So I don't know why they're even doing that. That almost implies to me, I'll even make a speculation, that implies to me Elige isn't even being a diva. He's actually trying to be sacrificial and go, okay, if you want to do that, guys, I'll go in first. I think when JT comes in, because I saw what he did with him in Complexity, where that was a scuffed ass roster, I think JT walks in and Elige tomorrow becomes good again. I don't know how good. Again, I noticed the peak of his career, I did say it was like fucking 6 years ago or something. But with that said, I think like an Eco, when you're as good as he is, like when I watch his POVs, mate, it's not as like his mechanics have gone. He's also a guy, obviously, for his side hustle, who plays the fucking refrag thing all the time, doesn't he? Does aim trainers. I could say that's real. Elige actually is a guy where, despite what people think he's difficult, part of why he's difficult is he wants to be like involved in the team processes. He wants to come up with his own ideas for tactics. He wants to talk about how you can use him in the round. Like, those can all be very positives if you have the right person. So I think hopefully JT is that person. I also think JT will be like actually excited to work with this squad. I think he has a chance to turn it around. And yes, look, I don't think he will win a major, sadly. They don't have the squad to do it right now. But if we were picking next people to win, in my opinion, bearing in mind Guardian hasn't played a one round of good CS for about fucking 4 or 5 years at this point in time, boys. It goes like this. This is the order. In fact, more than that. He was shit at the end of Navi, so it's 6 years now. It goes like this. I think the greatest person is Elige hasn't won. Guardian can be number 2. I think number 3, that the sleeper is, he was in the finals case Serato. What an amazing career that guy's had as an individual player, but he's only had a couple of sniffs at a major, so I think you can put him in the conversation too. He's mega.
It would be like, what would it be? I guess, I mean, if you're looking at like individuals, also like kind of also slept on is NAF. Because NAF was like, at times, like, the thing is that Elige would probably be the better player almost all the time, but there were definitely stretches on Liquid where NAF was the better player than Elige. They were trading.
And by the way, these guys have also won a lot of trophies too for people who've ever won the major. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So for both, in a weird way, actually, the team if you want like the most should have gotten their major by now players. The team to root for now is actually becoming Liquid.
Yes.
Just because
by the way,
because of their two stories.
I believe that's even a piece of trivia that they're the only team that ever won the Grand Slam and then ever won the major. So that's even almost like it's almost like the conspicuous part of their careers, isn't it? Because by the way, they should have won one. You pick which one it should have been. There's a couple of them where they were at least number 2, if not number 1 ranked.
Yeah. I mean, if you go really far back in history, you could probably want it for somebody like Scream, I guess. But like that's just maybe a little fan service there. But no, he was really good back in the day.
I mean, I always personally thought it would have been cool if Alexi B had ever won a legit major. Never happened, sadly. But
me personally, I'm still holding out for Axile because everybody's getting hyped about TDK. So when's Axile going to get hit?
Yeah, listen, it's like I've got good news and bad news, Ne0Kai. Good news, you've got Axile. Oh, shit, one of the best players of all time. It's 2026. Nah, damn it. Oh, that time machine's not available, is it? No, it isn't. Mate. Then again, same thing for Axile.
Axile's back, is all I'm saying. He's been farming.
Is he
though? It's tier 2, but he's been farming.
So you don't even believe in Elise, but you believe in Axile still, mate. No one believes it. Even Axile doesn't believe in Axile. I'll tell you right now.
I know. I'd take Elise in a heartbeat over Axile today.
Okay, right, I am going to do as my bad one. I'm actually just going to steal what Maui was going to do because it's a better one. I had one that wasn't that good. It was more like a gag one. So I'm going to steal Maui's. I think it's actually quite a relevant one. I referenced it earlier in the show, right? Forget for a second any rumour we've ever read online. Here's how I would now have viewed Aurora's run at this major. I told people I did have them getting through in my stage 3 pick'ems, but I picked them as the last team. I noticed a lot of people, the 8th spot was what everyone ummed and ahed on. Some people went with Mouse, some people went with maybe 9Z or something, everyone was putting like the dodgy ones there, because aside from that, there was sort of 6 or 7 that were obvious. The 2-3-0s were fairly obvious, and then most of the 3-1-3-2s are fairly obvious. I actually think that Aurora basically gave a very good account of themselves at this tournament. Like, they looked great in the group stage. Remember, they were the ones playing against some of the teams where you're supposed to be scared, like, oh my God, no, watch out, that 9Z team's really dead. They didn't have any problems with them, man. They just handled them. They're like, okay, cheers. The only team they lost to was Spirit, who was playing out of their fucking mind. Monty was dangerous, not for them. G2 handled them. 9Z, if people don't know, they only lost 2 maps in the fucking Swiss. It was 2 to Spirit, and that was still a 2-1 series. Then you go look in the playoffs. They played Bet Boom, right? Guys, are we missing something? Some people were picking Bet Boom to win that. Bet Boom was on like some crazy Cinderella run. Handled them. That was pretty good, I thought. Yes, in the semis, they got blown out by Furia, who I do think is the better team anyway. And obviously, historically, they've been a team that's choked in the playoffs. Like, I admit they didn't do it against Bet Boom, not really the hardest opposition, but, they haven't done as well as they could. People like Xantares traditionally have struggled, etc. So my problem is, I actually think, under normal circumstances, they would come out of this major and you would say some of the same things of like, okay, maybe Xantares played shit against Furia. All right, maybe we got like the odd easy bracket, although I'll say, everyone now will say it's easy. We're all hyping exactly those teams. Bet Boom, 9Z, Monty. You were all telling me those are the teams on fire and everyone should stop, going with the classics of the Navis and all the ones that are looking off their game. So my problem is I actually would come out of this major with fairly sort of like optimistic potential for Aurora. But as pointed out, not only have those rumours circulated for a couple of months, remember they began with this idea that like, was it a KRL rumour? I forget. I know it was like Sponge who said it on HLTV Confirmed. The original rumour was some crazy one like Alexi B and Molodor you're joining fucking. Yeah. And then if you remember, as pointed out earlier, they then did a bunch of interviews before this major and at this major where everyone kept saying what you're saying, Ne0Kai. They didn't say either, I don't want to talk about it, or these are all lies. Remember, players love to say it's a lie or it's true. By the way, people don't know, I think Monty even said it was a lie that like he was joining Falcons or something. So one of those ones where it's like he just did it right afterwards. So players are normally notorious for not letting that shit go. They were actually saying everything the opposite. They were basically letting you read between the lines. Everyone's whole shit was sort of like, well, there might be moves, but I'm not involved, so I don't want to talk about it. Or, well, who can know right now? We'll see after the event. Like when you say it like that, that makes it sound like there are moves coming in. You just don't want to face the reality because you've got to play the tournament. So I actually think if you look at Aurora, and as I say, Woxic, if you don't know, by the way, is actually more in the Kassad camp. I think he's sort of like a man's man if you don't know. That guy's kind of a baller. I'm sorry, I don't believe he really cried because he just lost the major semi-final. I think he cried because either he isn't going to be in this team or someone he cares about isn't going to be in this team, and that was their last chance. And also, if you look at that bracket, actually, even if you're Aurora, people say this about Fury, but if I'm Aurora, it's also like, boys, if we just fluky game over fucking Fury, we're in the final of the major. Like, that's a real chance to do something. So I do think my bad point is that it looks like this Aurora team's done. And even though I've never been like the biggest fan, like obviously they have many times let people down. I always point out they're always in the top rankings, but if you ever look at tournaments, they very rarely do actually beat the big dogs. They tend to just beat the shit out of all the smaller teams and run all over them. Then as soon as they play someone good, they lose, and it might be close, but they lose. So it's not like they were my favourite team, but I did think they had their own flair, they had their own style and identity. You knew exactly what to expect from them. If they really go international, first of all, I think they could just fuck the whole team up. I have no idea if that'll even work. And then also, the names circulating are all over the place. Some of them, like I said, feel impossible. Like, was really Molodoi and Lexi ever available for this? That feels like you're wild about. But then at the same time, who is joining then? You know what I mean? Like, who's available? Yeah. Is it really going to be some like mid-tier player? Is it? I mean, they're going international, we assume. So I also think that's why it's bad for me. It's one of those ones for me where you might gamble that Aurora wasn't good enough, but you might end up with a worse one, or you might just even lose the whole identity of what the team is. So what are your thoughts on this one, Ne0Kai?
Well, I can give you one just to start. You know, you're talking about the rumors. I can kind of give you a rumor that I've heard. This is not from like a crazy source. So, but I'm
so scared.
I heard Aurora are in talks to pick up Kicksan.
Oh, actually, that's not that bad. You know what? I was ready to hate on it. That's not that bad, actually. I do think, by the way, one of the saddest things about this offseason, this is why you know that people forget you real quick. Why is the discussion with like about half a dozen top 10 teams not pick up Kicksan? Like, again, if I am Mouse, Liquid's already got TT apparently. There's a bunch of teams could use that guy, surely. That's an interesting one, actually. That's not that bad, mate. That's not that bad. I kind of cooked that. Okay.
That's what I've heard.
Okay.
I've heard Kicksan, and obviously the Ash one feels like it's pretty like, like locked in place. At least there's like a rumor. And the other one that I've heard that is still.
We need him to get a gig somehow. We can get hired again. So get him the fuck off the desk. Get him off the desk. Get him off the desk.
Yeah. So Ash coaching. Kicksan, obviously call it, but the other one that I've heard that is still apparently pretty secured is Molodoi. So apparently that team is going to be that core of like Kicksan, Colin, Molodoi, and then Zantara.
As in for this upcoming season now, like he just leaves already without even waiting out Fallen's time. Fucking hell! Why are they doing all that shit? Like he's just like Fallen's son. Why are you leaving the team? Your dad's there. Why are you betraying your family? Whatever.
Yeah, so Xantaros, Wicadia, Soulfly, Ash coaching, Kicksan, and Molodoi is the rumor that I've heard floated around over like this weekend. So whether that actually comes true or not, I don't know. It's not from like a guaranteed source or anything, but that's what I've been hearing coming around. But I do agree. I do think like Aurora like did like what they like needed to do at this tournament. Prove themselves.
Also, I forgot to mention, bro, the reason why I don't get as caught up in the Xantaros, by the way, he does choke in massive games, Xantaros. He just does. That's why, by the way, people wanted Xantaros and that greatest player ever to win. He deserves not to win one. He fucking chokes his tits off every single semi. But I'll tell you the guy I actually feel sorry for. Mate, I don't think Wicadia has ever played better CS than he does right now. Like, he's actually peaking so like a motherfucker. So I get scared when he change up the roster then, you know.
Yeah, he absolutely destroyed Beppu. I mean, as this like, like only stage 1 team to make it all the way to the playoffs or whatever, and he just like completely decimated them. It felt like he could do it on his own, right? So like it's I think you're right. Like, does this like throw off the whole team, right? When it's now like new system, new caller, this, that, and the other. Like, I mean, granted, if they are getting Molodoi, like that actually
that's pretty dope.
Like, it feels like, I mean, he was the only one for me in that final. He felt like he wasn't really like phased by what was happening. Like, I felt like the rest of the team obviously sort of slightly fell apart, but Molodoi still did what he did. It doesn't really feel like that pressure really gets to him. He still plays up to like that kind of like crazy level that he can play at. Like his ceiling is so high. So I mean, that like feels like a nice move as a whole. Kicksan, it feels like he offers more as a caller. Ash as a coach, it feels like he's obviously so highly respected, especially by a lot of the players. So on paper, it feels good. But I get your point. It does feel like when you've just had actually what was a good tournament for you, where you lost to a team that really you just should be losing to. Like it's not a shock that you lost to Fury in a sense. I don't think it's a bad tournament. So then you're making these changes coming through. And it kind of goes back to sort of like my ugly point of where like I think these teams who are like sort of so desperate to be in that conversation right at that top end are actually going to regress for a little bit before they move forward. And I feel like Aurora is like a prime example of it, where like this could take a little while, like teething issues, changing language as well, now having all this new system, new caller, all these other things. Like it's going to vastly change like how this team plays. And granted, we could get that classic honeymoon like phase that we get where it's like like, you know, they immediately just start playing well. They got injection of firepower, this, that, and the other. But it very easily could be a coin flip and could be the other way, where it takes ages for the teams to actually click if this is actually the team they're going for. So yeah, I agree with you. It feels like just off the back of what felt like a good tournament, played some really good CS. Sure, they got a bit of a damp squib against Fury, but as a whole, like a really decent showing from them, and a lot more of like getting like the superstar material out of like people like us, especially like Arcadia, and even like some really decent maps at times, some like Xantares in the earlier stages, and Woxic as well, where now it's like, well, that's kind of unfortunate. Like you've just finally hit like a level where it feels like maybe we are actually a bit competitive and this, that, and the other, and now it's all changing.
Yeah, this was going to be my point before, because I really feel like Aurora's been playing the best CS that I've ever seen from them, actually. I think their T sides have actually looked a lot better in terms of being more thorough. The way that we would have described Aurora in 2024, I guess they might have been EF at that time, but 25, 24 was sort of one note. It was pretty much just 5-man. It was actually one of the... I think that they kind of actually made me sort of hate watching Counter-Strike in some ways, because it was just 5-man deathballing towards bomb sites, which also worked out for them because they were in the past big Vertigo pickers, and what can you do on Vertigo? You can just 5-man go one bomb site. Like, that's exactly what the map is. And then the other map that they play is Anubis, where you just you're gifted all of the map control. Practically speaking, like taking middle is the easiest thing ever on Anubis ever. You just molly one side, smoke a door, and then like you're fine practically. And then you can just split, and you can just pick whatever bomb site you want to split. So it was a team that practically revved up faster than any other team and just brawled into you. And the reason that they were always losing in playoffs was because they were just getting flanked. You would look at every single team that basically beat Aurora in playoffs, and in 2025, especially when they had that, I think it was like a 6-tournament streak where they made the playoffs every single time and then got bounced in the first round. And every single time you look at it, and their T sides just completely collapsed because teams would just do the most basic precursory research on how this team plays stylistically, and then they would just anti-strat them, aka push extremities, and then they would just flank them and get multi-kills all the time. And so when they got Soulfly, it actually felt like they changed that. And talking to Major on the desk at the Blast Rotterdam event, sadly, this VOD is apparently just gone, because it was after the 12-hour mark of a stream, and Twitch and YouTube just don't hold on to those very well. But I did an interview with him on broadcast where he talked about how... he put it pretty bluntly that he thought Jota was not as smart as Soulfly, and the Soulfly he would trust more to play the extremity positions and to lurk, essentially. And then he also let Wycadia lurk. So both of them became at various times lurkers for the team on their T sides, who would find openings, who would hold on to space so that he could mid round, so that he could. And I thought, because before I thought, man, Major is just the most boring caller ever. But then he gave that little bit of insight, and I still hold the opinion that he probably could have let Wycadia lurk earlier in his career, so I'm not going to let him off the hook entirely. But I thought Aurora played a lot better. I mean, they were able to they even actually developed some of their nuke T sides a bit. I think their overpass was kind of reasonable too at times. Obviously they still held on to their Anubis when they had to play Dust and Mirage. They were actually kind of fine on those ones too because of the firepower aspect. So yeah, I thought they were playing some of the best CS that they had played ever as a Turkish 5-man lineup. Like I don't think I've ever seen a Turkish 5-man from the Space Soldiers days, or them playing like Cobble and Cash, to watching them play in the last 2 years. Even if the world ranking was relatively similar, I truly felt like this was, by the eye test, the best 5-man Turkish lineup I've ever seen. And now the fact that it's going away is kind of gut wrenching, because so many full 5-man domestic lineups are going by the wayside, and that's kind of what's happening here seemingly with Aurora. So my heart actually goes out to them. I don't even really care. Like I don't even. There's really nothing to gain with me in the Turkish fandom. Like they'll hate me, they'll love me, it doesn't matter. Like there's nothing to win on that. I literally just have it out for a team right now that I think should have played another season together, because things were coming together. And so if this is actually the swan song of them, and I think it is, given Watsic's reaction.
Let's add this in. Surely they would have been good on Cash too. That feels like a map that would play right into their strengths.
It's all of their classic strengths. Yeah. All of the Xantara's Space Soldiers with Major was like, I think that was their best or second best map. So yeah, like I would have wanted to see them play that one. Yeah, completely. And so, no, that would have, I mean, especially with, I also just don't think that today, like a year, maybe 9 months ago, yeah, I'd take Kixan over Major. Today, it's a bit more of a coin flip because Major has actually really improved his fragging. Like 2025 second season Major was one of the worst players in all of Tier 1. As an individual.
I mean, it was the one that karrigan just beat as the record for the worst stats ever, or whatever the fuck. That was the whole thing he just beat.
Yeah, for like B-Trans expected kill stat. Exactly. Yeah, karrigan is the only one that had worse. Just normal rating also, it goes together with that. Yeah, no, but he played better. Like, as an individual, Major was playing better. Their calling looked better. Wycadia has blossomed into this, top 15 player for sure. He's really been lights out lately, both like intelligent play along with great mechanics. Like he's kind of a souped up version of Ema. I know I keep focusing on Ema, but there's a great video on YouTube. If anybody wants to look at it,
suggest as many players who could replace him as possible. Okay.
Yeah, literally, if Wycadia was there for Ema, it's just like a better version, actually. Like,
by the way, Ema, you don't realize the actual irony is it wasn't even having shit stats and winning that major that triggered Maui. It's when you got that empty calories MVP that like the rating update just showed us nonsense. That lives rent free in Maui's head, unfortunately.
I mean, even HLTV, if they redid that today, would not have given him that award.
They would take it off.
Yeah, but they don't do that. I mean, it is also just, if anybody wants a fire piece of content from a guy that's like an up and coming creator, Vondas, Vondas on YouTube. This guy is fucking hilarious. I don't think he's ever going to be allowed to show his face because he says obscene things about players, but he is so funny.
He's actually doing what I asked people to do years ago, Maui, which is if you actually think someone's a fraud, just make a video showing it, like show clips of where they're doing all bullshit. Because he had a couple other ones also, didn't he? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Vondas is so laugh out loud funny with the way he breaks down, and he's such a demo grinder. The way he's able to find like he actually analyzed like 120 of the kills that Ema got at IEM Atlanta, and actually said what kind of fights he took in all of those fights. It's a crazy amount of work that he's putting in.
This is the guy who also did the video about why Chopper was a fraud. He had one about how like Brokey should retire. They were, as you say about it, he could never show his face. He'd be like public enemy number one.
Yeah. No, legit. I've thought about doing videos like this, but then I always have to, tame it down a little bit because, like, when I'm saying like Skulls is a fraud on the teams that he's on, I always try to be like, okay, let me statistically prove this in the most PC way possible, so nobody really gets upset at me, so I can be hired for the next event and not be, exercised from the community entirely. Like Vondas is just using like a meme photo of his profile picture of like one of those Wojaks with crazy hair or whatever, because he knows he's insane. Like, he just admits that the fact that like he is like on the fringe of the internet right now, just shit talking professional Counter-Strike players. But no, back to Aurora. I am actually like legitimately I'm upset. I'm actually upset that this team is breaking apart seemingly. I almost hope that the rumors are all untrue. I wish they could continue because I think they've actually been on a bit of an upward tick that I hadn't seen. And also, even to be fair, this is the best major run that they've had. It sucks to go out before you really gain that momentum. Like, Major went into he actually got up and coming Turkish players. He actually finally did that. Like, the problem with the Turkish scene 10 years ago is they just kept recycling names. Like, that was the big flaw of the team, is that, and it's kind of like North America, but then, and as an NA representative who has seen the death of North American CS and how it happened because none of these rosters were willing to give up and coming players chances, and they just kept recycling spent talent.
If people don't get the point, you could be doing that right now. You could still have Calyx. You could bring Xfloud back. These players have all played up. Instead, they went Jota, they went Soulfly. Yeah, they've gambled. They've tried to bring new players. As a result, they've also gone from they're just a cool lol, it's a Turkish team. They're actually one of the best teams in the world for like 2 years now.
Yeah, no, they pretty much maintained top 8 in the world status for a year and a half straight, which is extremely impressive. I don't even know, like, the only other team that's kind of doing something similar is practically, well, I guess Russia counts, but even they are importing talent now. Even Spirit's got 2 guys that aren't from Russia now. But like, yeah, no, it's really just Aurora and the Mongols who have been doing similar stuff. So yeah, it's just a shame. It's a shame that every single team now is just becoming like the ChatGPT AI international roster that you don't even really know what the identity is, and you kind of have to make one up on the fly.